All right, welcome and good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 7th. It is 9:01, so we will call this meeting to order. We're going to ask that those who are present to stand if you are both willing and able to stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be delivered by Pastor Todd Carter of Pathway Church.
Let's pray together this morning. Well, Father in heaven, as we come together this morning, we pause and we remember 80 years ago today, the sacrifices that the men and women made at Pearl Harbor. God, and how those sacrifices had a rippling effect that changed our world in many ways. And God, as we come together now, I just thank you just for the sacrifices that this day, that the men and women of our law enforcement, our first responders, the public servants here in our city are making, and the rippling effect that it has today. God, thank you so much that all of that comes from you. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And we pause and we think about that during this Christmas season. And I pray as we come together today that you just would give my friends here just wisdom, insight, knowledge, God, as they navigate just our great city forward. Lord, we just love you. We just thank you for today, and we just pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Madam Clerk.
Approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 23rd, 2021.
Has every member had an opportunity to review the minutes, and if so, is there any discussion on the minutes? If there is no discussion on the minutes, then I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, our first speaker canceled, so we have speaker number 2, Todd Ramsey, Century 2, and the future of Wichita.
Moving into our public agenda. Mr. Ramsey, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Todd Ramsey. I live at 5421 Lambsdale. Normally, when I get up here, I start talking with a general idea of what I'd like to say, but with no end in sight. I just hope that I'm eventually able to land the big idea by the time I'm done. This will likely come as a surprise to none of you. But today, I felt that what I'm about to say warranted a written statement. The words that follow are solely my own, not reflecting the boards upon which I sit, the clients I represent, or the civic groups with which I am involved. I'm here today to publicly admit defeat to save Century 2. I was once an ardent supporter of the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan, and have been an outspoken advocate for making Wichita's riverfront a dynamic, catalytic destination for our entire city. However, I stand before you today a humbled, quieted, beaten man who has seen the error of my ways. Century 2 is the most important structure in our city, but it is more than a building. It is a symbol, the icon of our city. That round building, built in the style of Frank Lloyd Wright, or basically built by Wright himself if you peruse the literature and attire created by the Save Century 2 movement, represents what we value most in this city: comfort. This has been a difficult journey for me to walk, as I believe that Wichita was working towards a dynamic growth and change, albeit at a slower pace than I preferred. But as I watched and participated in the drama and narrative unfolding around our beloved blue roof, everything eventually became clear. Wichita is a comfortable city. We value our comfort above all else. Our commutes are comfortable. Our housing costs are comfortable. We constantly engage the community to make sure they're comfortable with any major or minor initiatives. There's a large number of people who want the right to discriminate against things that make them uncomfortable. We don't like acknowledging data or facts about our city because that makes us uncomfortable. Many Wichitans refuse to go north, south, east, or west depending upon which cardinal direction they're starting from, because that's uncomfortable. But Century 2 is comfortable. We know it. It's in all the pictures of our city. It was cool at one time, and there's a very real chance that if we do something new, it'll be terrible and boring, and that would be super uncomfortable. So, to the Save Century 2 team, I have to say thank you. Thank you for highlighting what our city is, what we value, and what will seemingly never change about us. And to many of our civic leaders, thank you for allowing Save Century 2 to speak unchecked and uncontested. Anger, dishonesty, and nostalgia are powerful weapons, and letting them say whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, without a meaningful challenge or response was the only logical solution to allow our city's comfort to thrive. I see that now. And specifically to you, Mayor Whipple, as you and your city council work to create the grand vision you have for our city, without actually having stated what it is, I am pleased that Century 2 and its devotees sit at the core of all that you'll be able to accomplish. Finally, to future leaders of Wichita, I encourage you to look at the Save Century 2 movement as the example for how to get what you want in the city. Acting with kindness, grace, sincerity, truth, open-mindedness, and collaboration are weaknesses to be avoided at all costs. Instead, declare your opposition the enemy and work tirelessly to destroy them. Century 2 isn't going anywhere, and I can finally, publicly say, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
All right, next, please.
Tremaine Longer, thank the Wesley medical staff.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, City Council. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. So I'd like to start this session, my 5 minutes, with paying respect to the Christian Bible for creation and word financially to pay our families. I think it's very important in today's day and age to do that. I'm not a fan of criminals or their evil. Lady Justice and staff, thank you for coming up with a good path for me. With the Celestial Church of Jesus Christ being greater than Omicron, I think that's what they call it these days, that new disease. I will be spending my 5 minutes in holiday adoration with you praising our people. During this upcoming week, please read Malachi 3, 1-4, Luke 1, 68-79, and 3, 1-6, 1-6, Philippians 1, 3-11. That was just a gift from Prince William and the Church of Scotland for the weekly readings. And the Roman Catholic Church also brings gifts as well. Isaiah 41-11 and Isaiah 40:10ab. Psalms 96, 1-3, 10 AC, 11, 12, and 13. Luke 15, 3-7, and Matthew 18, 12-14. And finally, from the upper room, Psalms 118, 24, and Luke 5, 17-26. These are just a few passages to help our holiday season go smoothly. Thought I'd throw that in there. Oh, I'm currently staying at my father's house, by the way. So, I know it sounds like a lot, so I'll ease up with an Our Father and then lead into the rest of my 5 minutes. So thank you for your time, and you're welcome to reply anytime. So Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us for our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And don't let us fall into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory is yours now and forever. First of all, I'd like to start out with thanking two young gentlemen that helped me with a hostage situation on October 4th. They're 10 and 11 years old, 9 to 10, somewhere in there. And while they're being hunted down by local criminals, two gunmen with guns, they helped me procure and save the lives of 3 women. It was a mother, grandmother, and a daughter. while the grandmother watched on her porch. The two women, the mother who was 40 and the daughter who was 8, were trying to go to the local grocery store, Dillon's. And the young man, the gunman, who's 75, held them at hostage while I saved their lives. As I entered the situation, the man fled back to the original area which he came from. There he gathered another gunman, and there was 2. While we waited for the police to show up, the 2 original victims, the hostages, the 9 and 10-year-olds, ran back to their apartments for help after helping me procure the ladies' lives. When I was holding the 2 gunmen at bay while the police showed up, I was shot in my neck and killed. I was then pronounced DOA at Wesley Hospital. I was asleep for 6 to 7 minutes. I then spent a week on a ventilator, thanking Jesus and the Wesley medical staff and all of Sedgwick County for the good services that they provided. I know that COVID-19 and all the diseases have been a tough time on everybody. I know we're all short-staffed and we all try our best. So I wanted to thank you personally for showing up and doing your jobs on a daily basis. I only wish I could be there more for the people who deserve it. Like I said, I'm not a credit hog. Those young men that were under hostage fire, just as I was, did just as much as I did. So I want to thank them, their families, and all the Sedgwick County staff, especially Wesley Medical Hospital, for providing such good care and service. Dr. Phillip was the one that provided my surgery, and I'm the first one to ever live in Kansas from this particular surgery. It was called a clamshell. My survival rate is 0.0003%. So through the world, when somebody gets a surgery on Monday, 99% die on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, 3% of that 1% die as well. So you guys do an excellent service for the community, and I just want to thank you for your time and appreciation.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next item. Oh,
There's a
we have
speaker.
someone on the board. My apologies. Councilmember Bluebog. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for bringing that to my attention.
Hey, Jermaine, I'm glad you made a full recovery, and I'm glad you're here still with us. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Madam Clerk,
Consent agenda items 1 through 20.
has every member had a chance to review the consent agenda? And if so, is there any discussion on a consent agenda? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to pull item number 9.
Item number 9 will be pulled. Any other discussion? There is no other discussion on the consent agenda, then I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item 9.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. We are back on item number 9 of the consent agenda. The chair recognizes Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, sir. This is probably just a simple typo, but on page 3 of the green sheet, it lists the 22 allocation for Wichita Art Museum as 41 million, and I think it's supposed to be 1.9 million. That's quite the indentation on our budget. I don't think we could shovel out of if that was the case. So just wanted to be clear on that.
41 million for the art museum. We'll let I think 22 million is what it takes to fix a dangerous freeway. So putting that in context, we'll let the manager clear this up.
I guess we're going to have to eliminate the fry wing that we had anticipated. Thank you for correcting that mistake.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we didn't catch that. And you're correct, that should be the
1.9. Yeah.
And for those watching, the green sheet is our informational sheet. So the 1.9, obviously, in the forms I'll finalize this item is it's correct there. It's just wrong in our green sheet. Very good. So with that, I will allow Councilmember Fry to retain the floor for a motion.
So with that correction, I move we accept item 2.9 as amended.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Board of Bids and Contracts and Wichita Airport Authority Board of Bids and Contracts dated December 6, 2021.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Melinda Walker, Department of Finance. See if I can. All right. For engineering today, we have our paving of St. Paul Court, Cato Construction for $113,001. Water Distribution System Heritage at Auburn Hills Edition, deferred till next week, December 13th. For purchasing alleyway cleanup and decontamination, Boulevard Construction Group, $7,507.50. And Exhibit B for the itemized pricing. Battery-powered portable column lifts, AR Phoenix for $68,866.72. Stainless steel slide gates, Flood Equipment Company for $60,000. For our airport bids, we have airport installation of HVAC equipment and addition construction for CM3 Inc. for $341,300. And how to register to become a vendor for the city, and our open request for proposals, and approve the recommendation.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? So there's no input from the public. We'll bring it back to the bench for discussion. Is there discussion on this item? If there is no discussion, then I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommended action to receive and file the report, approve the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Petitions for public improvements.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council members. Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. For your consideration this morning is new and revised petitions for 2 developments. The signatures on the petitions represent 100% of the improvement district and are valid per Kansas statute. The first development is for Falcon Falls 3rd Edition, north of 45th Street North and west of Hillside in District 1. This property that is poised for development was platted in 2005 and never developed. So the petitions currently on file are no longer valid. The developer has submitted new petitions that will cover the cost of a private bid for water, sewer, and paving improvements. And this will be extension of an existing development. The second development for your consideration today is Rennick Edition, north of 45th Street North, west of Hoover in District 6. In April of this year, the City Council approved petitions for this development for water, sewer, and paving improvements. The developer submitted revised petitions with increased budgets to cover the cost for a private bid. Again, this would be for water, sanitary, sewer, and paving. Staff recommends City Council approve the new and revised petitions and budgets, adopt the amending resolutions, and authorize necessary signatures. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Gary, on the Falcon Falls work, is any of that around those, I think those are retention ponds? Or is that for the newer development, I think, east of what's already been developed?
I don't know. I'll have to find out and let you know. I was trying to think if I could tell you which part of Falcon Falls this is, and it's not coming to me, so I'll have to get back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So several residents in Falcon Falls have concerns about that retention pond and the way the developer did it, and they feel like it's a risk to the kids in the development because of the steepness of the pond. And if they were doing some work, I'd definitely love that to be addressed because several of the folks over there have reached out to me. Concerned.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and we'll take a look at that from regardless.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? See none. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? If there is no further discussion, then I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the new and revised petitions and budgets, adopt the new and amending resolutions, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing to consider an amendment to the Chicken and Pickle Community Improvement District.
Welcome.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Elder with the Office of Economic Development. The item before you today is an amendment to the Chicken and Pickle CID. Primarily, it's actually a removal of a parcel. So the original project was first and foremost for the Chicken and Pickle, but it included additional out parcels that were along 13th and Greenwich. With that, those additional parcels were included in there for allowing if additional projects were to come forward that were consistent with the policy, they could be included. The new tenant is Tommy's Car Wash, and so with that, the developer has petitioned to remove Tommy's out of the district, so it will not be participating within that CID. But with that, it does require this public hearing to make that boundary change to remove Tommy's from the Community Improvement District. The existing CID today includes, you can see there's the parcels along Greenwich, as well as kind of on the southeast, and the red there is where that Chicken and Pickle, which was the original project. Tommy's is on the south, and you'll see that here in a moment. It's that, as well as an unneeded parcel on north there that are to be removed today with the action. With that would leave this as the proposed new boundaries for the Community Improvement District. This is the only change being recommended today, is to remove those parcels from the CID. With that, I would stand for any questions regarding this.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Mark. What is the expected financial loss to the CID with the removal?
Well, with the CID, I haven't calculated that for the purpose of the Tommy's. It doesn't have an impact on the Chicken and Pickle, which is there currently. With this, it would have a 10% city administrative fee that goes, or the public purpose that would go towards that, but I'd have to actually look back and see what the actual number would be of removing this from the CID. But it'd only be towards that public purpose benefit.
I just think that should be part of the presentation going forward when we have these.
Okay.
Because there is a percentage that goes back for maintenance and public improvement. And if we're going to have the CIDs for that, then we need to know what the implications could be when it's removed.
Understood.
We'll calculate that and get that back to the council. If you remember, we don't have any specific project earmarked at this point for the use of those funds.
Right, it was talked about for road maintenance along that corridor.
Actually, it was, I think, for some roadway improvements in the corridor.
Okay.
Other questions for staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? Not, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? If there is no further discussion, then I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommended action to close the public hearing, place the ordinance on first read, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
The Aerospace Industrial District of Sedgwick County, Kansas, non-annexation agreement, Spirit Aerosystems and Air Capital Flight Line.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. I'm Tim Goodpasture with the city's Office of Economic Development. For the record, the item before you today is a request for the renewal of a non-annexation agreement for the Aerospace Industrial District. Industrial districts were created in Sedgwick County, by Sedgwick County, at the request of the city of Wichita in 1979 and 1980. 4 districts were actually created, one for Cessna Wallace campus out at Eisenhower Airport, another one for Cessna Pawnee campus, which is on Pawnee between Woodlawn and Rock Road, third at Beechcraft, which is at Central and Webb Road, and the final one being the Boeing campus, which was on the east and west side of Oliver, north of 47th Street South. The industrial districts run in perpetuity, and they are all located in the county, not within the city of Wichita. After the creation of the industrial districts by the county, the city agreed to a non-annexation agreement for each of the industrial districts, the purpose of which was to foster economic growth. By agreeing to a non-annexation agreement, the city ensures that there are no city assessed ad valorem property taxes on real property improvements within the districts for the term of the agreement and any renewals therein. The Aerospace Industrial District was initially the Boeing Industrial District. It currently includes the Spirit Aerosystems campus on the west side of Oliver, north of 47th Street, and the Air Capital Flight Line campus, which is on the east side of Oliver, north of 47th Street. The non-annexation agreements run for 20 years, which is the maximum allowed under state statute. And Spirit Aerosystems and Air Capital Flight Lines have requested the renewal of the Aerospace Industrial District non-annexation agreement for an additional 20 years. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council place the ordinance authorizing the renewal and extension of the Aerospace Industrial District non-annexation agreement with Spirit Aerosystems and Air Capital Flight Line on first reading and authorize the necessary signatures. Adam Pogue and Sam Sackett from Spirit Aerosystems are here and can answer any questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to stand for any questions as well.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to hear from Sam or Adam about what if we do not extend this agreement, what is the possibility of these companies? What does the future look like for these companies or for your companies?
Good morning, Mayor Whipple, council members. Thanks for having me. That's a big question, obviously. When you think about what Spirit looks like today and our 10 sites around the world and the focus that we're putting not only on the commercial business, but the defense business and aftermarket in terms of diversifying our company, after coming out of COVID and the maxing of the grounding of the MAX airplane. I guess I'd say all these things count in terms of the consideration of where we put the work, what the workforce looks like, which obviously we're very focused on growing and educating here within Wichita with the help of NIAR and many of the other groups that we work hand in hand with. And I think this is just one element that, is a part of that continued growth that we continue to show here in terms of square foot expansion and employment growth and the like. So it's important to our business case and the way that we look at the future work here at the Wichita campus. Any other questions?
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. This question actually was given to staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim? Just a couple of technical questions. So page 3 of the ordinance, second paragraph, says on blank 2020 Wichita and the duly constituted meeting of its governing body did pass and approve the ordinance. Did we do something last year, or is that a typo?
No, that would be just for filling in ultimately the date on which this was approved.
Okay. But it'll be 2021.
Correct. We used a sample of the ordinance that we used when we previously did this with Textron 2 years ago.
Okay. And then there was some questions on social media as to whether or not the newly passed NDO would apply to this indentation within the city, since Wichita's around it. Would the NDO apply to that or not?
I think that would be a legal question. I'm not sure if I could answer that.
Vice Mayor, this non-discrimination ordinance is only applicable within the city limits of Wichita.
Okay. Is there a way that an agreement could have that applicable to that same area too, or would that just not?
Not sure how we could frame that. I guess it's something to look at, but it would be outside of the city limits and really outside of our jurisdiction. So just think that would take some research. I'm just not confident that's some authority that we would have.
Thank you.
And I'll just put out there, I believe the majority of the Fortune 500 companies actually have their own non-discriminatory policy in place. They understand the value of attracting and retaining the best and brightest, and We have actually, when we passed our non-discriminatory ordinance, took a page from their book to create the type of business environment that promotes growth. And I'm seeing some nods from Spirit in the back, which they seem to be agreeing that they do have their own non-discriminatory ordinance. I also saw some stuff on social media about non-discrimination ordinances extending beyond Wichita, and I think that that would be a interesting subject for the county to pick up on if they would like to extend our ordinance. We're happy to share notes and to use what we've learned over if they were be interested in expanding out to the unincorporated areas. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Welcome, sir.
920 Buffum. I'm a retired aircraft worker, but there's some things that I'm interested in. I'm not very secure about what the aircraft industry, from commercial or general aviation, is going to look like 20 years from now. We as a culture have not addressed climate change the way we should have, starting a long time ago. I think maybe I realize the importance to Wichita. There's nothing more important to Wichita than the aircraft industry. Boeing makes me a little nervous, and anything that would happen to Boeing would directly impact Spirit. I'm not sure we should do 20 years. I'm not saying don't do it, but if something happens and any of those companies leave, that's going to be a mess. And I couldn't guarantee that all of them will be here. I'm not even sure any of them will be here for sure in 20, 25 years. So I would probably shorten the time limit and to maybe 10 years and come back and revisit that item. It won't be you guys, but I think 20 years is too long. I'm not optimistic about the future of that entire industry, as well as many others. So anyway, thank you.
Further discussion. And I guess just this 20-year agreement is to continue the understanding that we won't annex this particular area. If this wasn't to pass, that doesn't mean we will annex this area. There's a whole process for that. Is that a correct statement?
Mayor, that's correct. It provides certainty to the companies, to Spirit and those at Capital Flight Line regarding what was intended, that this property would be in the county in perpetuity.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because there is buzz from folks who I don't think have the full information on social media, particularly that if we were to vote this down, we would then get $20 million in tax revenue from Spirit, and the fact is that's not true. And we would actually, if to annex an area is quite a process in its own. So I just wanted to make sure that we address that and give an opportunity for the manager to correct me if I'm wrong in that statement.
Mayor, you're correct, and especially an involuntary annexation is very difficult.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm surprised you just didn't correct the mayor just to do it, he said. To the previous speaker's concern, personally, from the investments I've seen from Spirit, I don't think they're going anywhere. It's been pretty significant. But if they were to leave, would we have to keep this for 20 years, or could a future council dissolve this at some point?
The state statute does authorize this council to be bound for 20 years. So I would look at whether we could legally separate this agreement. I'd have to look into that.
Sorry. I'm looking at the city manager, and he inhaled like he was going to respond, and then he caught himself, so that's what that pause was. I do want to comment, I guess we'll bring discussion back to the bench, as there's not anyone, it looks like, who wants to speak to the item from the public. I do just want to compliment Spirit on how that they have consistently reinvested back into their company. With the grounding of the MAX, Spirit has worked to diversify what they do by bringing in defense contracts, not just being dependent on the non-defense aerospace industry. They even at one point started making ventilators back when the MAX was grounded and when we had a bigger need for ventilators in this country on that first or second wave of COVID. So I applaud Spirit and enjoy seeing the innovation that's coming out of Spirit because of, I think, agreements like this, where they can feel confident in reinvesting into new endeavors over on the campus because they know that they have a partner with the city. So with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to place the ordinance authorizing the renewal and extension of the aerospace industry district non-annexation agreement with Spirit Aerosystems and Air Capital Flightline on first read and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Councilmember Cirillo. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Extension of industrial revenue bond exemption, Spirit Aerosystems.
Again, Mayor and council members, Tim Goodpasture with the Office of Economic Development for the city. The next item before you is a request by Spirit Aerosystems for a tax abatement 5-year review. Spirit Aerosystems was founded in 2005, which was formerly a division of Boeing. It is a Tier 1 manufacturer of metal and composite aerostructures that is located on South Oliver between 31st Street South and 47th Street. The area outlined in red in this aerial shows where the Spirit campus is in South Wichita. On May 3rd of 2016, the City Council approved a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for a 5-year term whereby Spirit would draw down against that $280 million not to exceed amount on an annual basis. To date, through that letter of intent, the Spirit Aerosystems has issued $253 million worth of bonds. In addition to the $280 million, it was projected that there would be a total capital investment over 5 years of $1 billion, which included machinery and equipment, which does not need to be bond financed. At the time the letter of intent was approved, Spirit had a base employment of 10,800 and projected it would add 349 net new jobs over a 5-year term. The company peaked at 13,200 employees, so it did in fact create the 349 jobs that it was projecting, and then since, due to market conditions, has dropped to its current employment level of just below 9,000 employees. The current economic development guidelines have a provision that allows for an extension to achieve the job creation on a 5-year basis if there is a 5-point drop in the current conditions index. The aerospace current conditions index did drop by 5 points for a period of 4 quarters or 1 year during the last 5 years of the agreement with Spirit Aerosystems. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council approve a 1-year extension of the ad valorem tax exemption for Spirit Aerosystems. Staff would come back a year from now and report on where Spirit is at that time in terms of its job creation and how it has progressed towards that 5-year goal. Again, Adam Pogue and Sam Sackett are here from Spirit Aerosystems and can answer questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to hear a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your companies and in terms of employment.
Good morning. Thanks for the question. It's been quite a journey, obviously. As mentioned earlier, for us, it's been a combination of the pandemic itself and the impacts to the overall aerospace industry, as well as the grounding of the 737 MAX airplane, which we all know is a big piece of the commercial business here at the Wichita site. But the positive news is we are on the upside, outside of the Chinese aerospace sector, if you will. The MAX is now approved for flight across the EU and across the United States, which is helping with our deliveries as well as Boeing deliveries. We just met on this morning, in fact, with Tom. The 737 rates will increase 100% between where we were at the beginning of this year and towards the end and the middle of next year. We're projected to be back to 42 airplanes a month by the end of 2022, which is getting back in the range of our higher rates respective to what really is the cash driver for our company here in Wichita. And then the balance, as Mayor Whipple mentioned earlier before, of the increase in defense work here at the Wichita site has allowed us to do a couple of things. One, recall a significant amount of the workforce that unfortunately was defected during the COVID pandemic, as well as the MAX grounding, and continue to even go beyond that in different skill sets and drive added employment to the projected numbers that we've been showing for the past year. Everything looks positive at this point in terms of the rate increases that are in the Boeing pipeline as well as ours, and all that's in our business plan currently.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. First, I appreciate all that Spirit is doing and the investments being made. I'm a little concerned, though. So you said you won't be back to max 42 planes per month until the end of next year? So are you confident that you would hit these numbers with a one-year review? Because you wouldn't be at max production until the end of next year?
If the question is our ability to hit that rate, so for those of you that have been close to it, and you think back to 2018, 2019, when we were producing 57 airplanes a month on the 737 MAX, what that means is we have the infrastructure, we have the capital, we have the tooling. So it really just does come down to prep for it, getting the workforce in place and getting everybody trained and back. So not a concern from a pure infrastructure standpoint, machinery, or capital. That's all in place.
Well, no, I meant the employee number. I'm sorry. I know you can make the planes. I'm not worried about that. But the employee number, 2019 was great. We were hearing thousands of jobs being created.
Yes, sir.
But as you're working back up to that level of production, do you think you'll hit the employment numbers for this extension within 1 year?
Yeah, we do when we do the math associated with what it took to build 42 airplanes a month. And unfortunately, the amount of people that we had and currently have on layoff, the recall numbers do support the rate.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? I just don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there more input from the public on this item? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on this item from the bench? If there is none, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the one-year extension of the ad valorem tax exemption for Spirit Aerosystems.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Councilmember Cirillo. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Extension of Industrial Revenue Bond Exemption, BANDDL1 LLC, Lee Air.
Again, Mayor and council members, Tim Goodpasture with the Office of Economic Development. The next item is similar to the Spirit item. It is a request by Lee Air for an extension of 1 year on its 5-year property tax abatement review. Lee Air was founded in 1981. It is a manufacturer of aircraft electronics that specializes in electronic controllers, printed circuit board assemblies, and other electronic accessories for civilian and military aircraft. The company is located at 3000 South Hydraulic. This aerial shows Wassell Street running along the top of the aerial and Hydraulic through the middle. Wassell is approximately a half a mile south of Pawnee. So this is just south of Pawnee on Hydraulic. On November 8th of 2016, the City Council approved a bond issue for the acquisition and renovation of an existing building located at 3000 South Hydraulic that had long been vacant, and subsequently approved a $5 million bond issue. This picture shows the exterior of the building as it looks today. At the time the bonds were issued in 2016, Lee Air employed 18 people and projected it would add 46 net new jobs over a 5-year term for a total of 64 total employees. Currently, the company is at 28 employees. The economic development guidelines, again, allow for a provision for an extension if a 5-point drop in the current conditions index occurs during the term of the economic development agreement. And it did, in fact, the aerospace current conditions index did drop by 5 points for a period of 4 quarters or 1 year. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council approve a 1-year extension of the ad valorem tax exemption for Lee Air. Holly Hall, who is a manager with Lee Air, is here, as well as Joe Byer, who's the accountant for the company. They can answer any questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Any questions of staff? See none. Is there input from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on this item? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Tim, one quick question. Was Lee Air on its way to achieving that employment number prior to 2020?
No, it has struggled. One of its major customers went out of business the year after these bonds were issued. So they have struggled in that capacity. They did take on some new business from a customer that was about to go out of business. They took over a customer's business and actually brought on some of the employees from that company. They have a new line that they are getting ready to launch that they are optimistic about creating additional new jobs. So they have been working to position themselves to achieve these jobs in the next year.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. But to be clear, Tim, they started with a base of 18 and they're at 28 now, so they did increase by 10.
They did increase by 10, that is correct.
With the goal of 46.
Correct.
So we have a year to get there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Further discussion? And I apologize, this falls into District 3, and so did the last couple items, and I did not defer to the Councilmember District 3 to make the motion, so I apologize. In the future of council, if I start getting on a roll, it's not on purpose. Please feel free to push your button and give you the floor when discussion's over, and then you can make the motion. So please help me make sure I don't oversee who should be making the motion. So with that, as this falls in District 3, the chair does recognize Councilmember Sorello.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank Lee Air for their continued economic activity in our community and wish them luck over the next year and hope that they continue to show improvements and meet the requirements of this agreement. So with that, I would move that this City Council take the staff's recommended action and approve a 1-year extension of the ad valorem tax exemption for Band DL1 LLC Lee Air.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2022 Park Facility Enhancements.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Reggie Davidson with the City of Wichita Parks and Rec Department. Here today to talk to you about the 2022 park facility improvements. So background, this is an ongoing project that develops and rehabilitates aging park amenities. It's initiated annually since 2001 and helps facilitate safe, functional, aesthetically attractive parks and facilities. So 2022, our priorities to include fixtures and furniture and equipment for Watson Park Event Center for the new building to enable it for programming and rental activities. Millbrook Park parking lot, construction of a paved parking lot there, artificial turf at Napster Park, Wooded Recreation Center, including flooring, equipment, and security there, A. Price Willett Park, repair and replacement of aging railing system, as well as replacement of various park amenities such as picnic tables, trash cans, bleachers, citywide. The financial considerations for this is that in 2022 to 2031, capital improvement programs contains $525,000 for facility improvement. The funding source for this project is general obligation bonds, and staff recommend initiating $525,000 at this time. Any projects unfunded in 2022 will be first priority for programming in 2023. So, and we're recommending actually initiate the project, adopt a resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. And I'll stand for any questions that you guys may have.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Had a discussion with Troy yesterday, so I'll make the rest of the council aware of what I discussed. I have some concerns with this item, and just because of some of the conditions that we have at Clapp Park. We have 2 bridges, 2-foot bridges over the creek at Clapp Park right now that are down completely. They are barricaded off, they are roped off, they are dangerous. I see every time I'm there, I see people still going over those barricades and using those bridges when they know they shouldn't be. I guess what I'm concerned about is that even though the city has done everything possible to barricade those bridges off, if someone gets in there and gets injured, we're going to be facing a lawsuit and very likely liabilities because of that. So I guess I would just like to see some priorities met. You know, when we're talking about paving a parking lot versus repairing what appears to be a dangerous situation, is it possible to prioritize these items in terms of importance? I mean, I realize that getting rid of these 2 or fixing these 2 bridges in Clapp Park is going to be very expensive. I understand that. And I understand that this is 4 projects split between $500,000 and $25,000. But at the same time, it's been 2 years. These 2 bridges in Clapp Park have been sitting there in a dangerous condition, unacceptable to me and many others, for 2 years. And now we're going to have to wait another year for these bridges to continue to be in an unacceptable condition. I just have to put my foot down here and try to fight for District 3 and get some of these problems fixed. So I guess I would ask, what is the suggestion? Should we delay this a week in terms of trying to prioritize some of these problems?
Mayor, Councilmember Cirillo mentioned this to me yesterday afternoon. What I'd like is if the council could delay this to the meeting of December 21st. That'll give us a little bit more time to discuss the current condition of the bridges at Clapp, to look at the master plan and the location of bridges that are anticipated in that master plan. Look if there's what needs to be done, maybe on a short-term and maybe a longer-term basis. But give us a little time to take a look at that, and then you can judge priorities after we get that data to you. But I'm not sure I can get everything together in a cohesive way in 1 week, so I'd prefer to have till the 21st.
Okay. We have a couple more people on the to speak to this, and if that seems like the consensus, then I'm sure we can make that motion. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. So this is the first I've heard of the conditions of the footbridges at Clapp Park. So thank you for bringing our attention. Wished I would have known about it sooner. That being said, West Millbrook is not in my district, but it's adjacent to it, and I'm very familiar with the conditions of that area. It's a very narrow road, and a lot of people use that park and park off the shoulder, cause a dangerous situation. So a parking lot is definitely needed. There's a playground there and a disc golf course, and the more people are using that park, it's causing a congestion problem in that neighborhood for traffic and kids. So a parking lot would definitely be necessary there. But I guess my question for Reggie is related to Nafsker Park. There is a CID in that district, and I think that was supposed to take care of maintenance. So wouldn't the turf and the lawn fall under that revenue stream and be able to use that funding source to make the repair rather than tapping into our capital budget?
And that's something that we'll have to look into further as well, and that'll be part of the research that we'll do for the next time that we come back. One of the things that we looked at when we were looking at that as a potential option for it, we were seeing from when we initially put that in place and what the need was based on how we're utilizing the space and the impact that we have with the maintenance and upkeep for the grass area there. It gives us more usability of the space on an ongoing basis compared to just having natural grass there. But it's definitely something we can look into for CIDs to see if it's an option.
Well, because you would not have the ongoing maintenance of the grass. I mean, it's not going to cover the cost of the turf, but that's got to be a factor in the consideration, right?
Right, eventually there'll have to be turf replacement, but
Yes.
we believe from initial research, based on some of the public discussion last week about this project, I believe this is an eligible expense out of CID. The issue is cash flow coming in from CID and whether sufficient funds are available to be able to make this improvement, if not this year, or how long it would take. So again, we can provide that information on the 21st.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. And to further on Councilmember Sorello's comments, I think we need to have some kind of council policy or some kind of matrix or something to look at in repair and upkeep of our current parks versus all the new parks, the park expansions we're doing. Whenever I got the $1 million Hyatt funding to do the improvements out there at Pawnee Prairie Park, probably half of it was spent just trying to bring the park back up to where it was usable condition. Same thing, we had an overflow bridge that anytime it rained, you got to spill off from the calf skin and the cow skin, and you couldn't even utilize 3/4 of the park. You couldn't even get across the bridge. So I would like to at some point have a policy discussion about that with the council to identify how we ensure that we're taking care of our current parks while we're expanding the park system.
So with that, it seems like there's consensus to get more information and to delay this. So with that, I will make the motion to take item 5 off, or to remove item 5 from our agenda and to place it on the December 21st agenda. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Mayor, I apologize. We haven't had the public input portion of this yet.
Oh, thanks for ensuring that I don't get myself in trouble. So thank you so much. So with that, is there any more discussion for staff? I feel like we got into the discussion from the bench, so I missed that part. No more questions for staff, thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? There is no input from the public at this time. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on this item that hasn't already happened? If there is no further discussion, then again, based off the previous discussion, I will make a motion to take item 5 and to remove it from today's agenda and to place it on the agenda for December 21st. Is there a second?
Second.
With that, is there discussion on the motion? There is none. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass, and we will revisit this item on December 21st. Madam Clerk.
2022 Playground Rehabilitation and Development.
Welcome back.
Morning, back again to discuss our rehabilitation and development for our playgrounds. So our background analysis for this, Park and Recreation Department currently responsible for 86 playgrounds. Playgrounds are routinely inspected and trained employees to ensure safety. 2022 funding will focus on fire and vandalism repairs for Emporia Park, vandalism repairs at Ailey Park, filling surface at the Fairmont Park, and obsolete play equipment at Meadow Park, and other repairs identified through inspections. So the financial consideration of the action for this is that 2022 through 2031 adopted capital improvement program includes $400,000 in 2022 for playground rehabilitation and development. It is recommended that the City Council initiate the project and adopt the bonding and resolution authorize the necessary signatures. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you guys may have in reference to this.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none? Thanks, Reggie. Is there any input from the public? Seeing no one from the public, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I will make the motion that we adopt the bonding resolution, authorize initiation of the project, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
I'll give the floor back to you, Mayor. Motion's on the floor.
Clerk, open the roll. Members cast the votes. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Community Services Block Grant Data Management Contract.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Nichelle Williams. I'm the program coordinator for the Wichita-Sedgwick County Community Action Partnership. I'm also known to most as the WISCAP program, a division inside of the Housing Department, and Sally Stain is our current director. The item I bring before you today is our data case management project. A little bit of background. We currently receive funding from the CSBG program, which focuses on lessening the poverty in our community. There currently are 8 agencies that are funded throughout the state, and we here at the WISCAP program currently cover the Sedgwick County area. Roughly about 18 months ago, we began with a meeting with our IT department here to better to report the outcomes and figure out what do our citizens inside of the city of Wichita need to have a quicker access to be able to receive services for our program. After several meetings and after meeting with them, it was determined that our current system that we currently use, right now, which is called ShareWell, no longer supports the program needs and cannot allow us to access the community of what we're needing. So we began a hunt. We currently put out in February of 2021, a request for proposals was issued. And then at that time, in June of 2021, there were 5 city staff that reviewed the proposal. And then at that time, in August of 16 of 2021, we decided on a program called iSight. iSight currently offers, as you will see, about 20 years of experience. They are involved all over the United States. I have over 400 organizations, and they even are also working with different customers inside of Kansas City, Kansas, City of Memphis, as well as Wisconsin, as a few others. Besides bringing a friendlier version for the software will also allow potential clients to enroll virtually, allow them immediate access and a quicker, faster speed time to be able to receive additional accesses and programs to receive services throughout the WISCAP program. KHRC had already agreed to award the WISCAP program $75,000 that was already approved by you, the council, on August the 17th of 2021. The remaining funds would be covered by the CSBG program, and we will be using administrative funds to cover those costs. Law Department has also been involved in this process and has reviewed and approved the contract as to form. This morning, I ask that you approve the contract and authorize any necessary signatures. I stand for any questions that you may have, and I also defer to IT if there's some questions that I am unaware of for this morning.
All right, is there questions on the item for staff? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the information. I'm lower tech than you are, so I just have a few questions. So this will be a software platform to help our clients, correct?
It will actually help the clients as well as the staff. So reporting outcomes, different grant outcomes, also some of the data that we report to you guys as a city as well. It helps speed up some of those. The current software that we were using, Sharewell, was not able to be a more of a robust system to allow us to be able to access that on both sides of the spectrum.
And so how will our clients, I know it says 1,000 individuals and families annually, how will they be made aware of this so they know the service is available?
So what we will do is we currently have clients that are already in our program, so we will send them out a big login, and they will be able to log in virtually and complete that information. If there currently are participants, we're going to take that data and move it over to the new software, so they won't have to do anything. But clients that we receive moving forward, they will receive a link and be able to apply just immediately from home. Currently, right now, we're using everything on paper, so they have to either come in or we have to mail them out paper, and then they have to send it back. So it literally will cut down several days, as well as mailing for those who don't have access to that.
Okay, just 2 more questions.
Yes,
and thank you. You're helping me to form a better,
You're
just to see
fine.
what this looks like. Can you go back to slide 73 just for a moment? Okay, so I thought it said there was going to be online training and plus staff support for 24-hour system. So staff will be available 24 hours?
The system will be available for support for them for 24 hours,
Okay.
as well as Eyesight is offering that, but no, not the staff.
That's what I just wanted to make sure. I thought I probably read it wrong, but I wanted to make sure it went fast. And then the last question is just thinking of coordination and making sure that our most vulnerable in our community have full access to resources that we have. Will there be any kind of coordination with the library to just in case people, if that's their only way that they have access to internet services or to get online, are we going to be coordinating with the library as well?
Yes, we will, as well as a lot of our resource centers throughout the community.
Perfect.
What we also have, and we currently are already doing, is for those who are actually struggle with using it, we'll do some face-to-face and meet them at one of the local resource centers to provide that support to them and help them navigate that. This is just an immediate tool, but we also recognize we may have to meet the needs and meet them where they are if need be.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
your great work.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public? See no input on this item. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Further discussion on this item? See no further discussion. With that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the Community Service Block Grant Data Management Contract with Customer Expressions Corporation and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members will cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2022 Animal Shelter Improvements.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Dan East, Captain with the Wichita Police Department. This morning, I'm here to talk to you about improvements, or an improvement with the Wichita Animal Shelter. The shelter currently utilizes 2 crematoriums, which are 13 years old. That's exceeding their 10-year useful life cycle. The internal crematorium liners are cracked and very deteriorating, resulting in less reliability and increased operating cost. Due to partnerships, though, with Kansas Humane Society and local rescue groups, the shelter has a return-to-owner rescue adoption rate over 90%. However, we still need functional crematoriums. The 2022-2031 Adopted CI Capital Improvement Program includes $400,000 in general obligation bonds for shelter improvements. Staff recommends the City Council approve the budget, adopt the resolution, and authorize any necessary signatures. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Well, I'm interested to know, you say we're over 90% with some of the animals that wind up in our shelter, over 90% adoption rate at this point. Has that gone up?
Yes, it has. Yes, back, the data that I have with me today, 2 years ago, we were about 89%. We jumped to roughly 92, 93% last year and this year. If we continue on with our partnerships, we are looking probably in the neighborhood of 94%.
All right, thank you. There's no questions for staff, so thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the budget, adopt the bonding resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received.
I know, I was too quick on that.
Having received 7 yea votes, please let the record show that Councilmember Fry is doing the emperor's thumb, voting yea. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2022 water and sewer rate adjustments.
Sir, welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. Alan King, Director of Public Works and Utilities. I'm bringing forward for your consideration today proposed increases in the water and sewer utility rates in the city. This is something that has been shown to council since 2019. We project out into future years what we anticipate the rates increases will be. As you can see, that red line is what we pick up as the national increase, annual increase average across the country, and the green line is what the city council is proposing. So again, this is something that has been brought to council since 2019 and is substantially the same as what has been presented. So we're on target, on track with what has been projected, and what we're looking at is a 5.13 combined rate, both the water and sewer rate combined together at 5.13%. When you look at these rate increases, it's important to understand what's driving them. We have to cover increases not only in our capital costs, but also our operation and maintenance costs. By far, the greatest amount of this rate increase is driven by CIP, capital improvement costs, 94% as opposed to 6%. And that covers the important infrastructure replacement that council has committed here for several years now to make sure that we replace and make more reliable our aging infrastructure. When you look at a drill down on those capital improvement investments, as you can see, 2 very large portions of that are the Northwest Water Treatment Plant and the projected biological nutrient removal or sewer treatment plant. Those are 2 major capital generational type improvements in our system, and they by far are the greatest drivers for these capital costs. But as you can see, that light blue wedge there is still also a significant part of our capital costs, and that's our water renewal and replacement, along with the green, which is our sewer renewal and replacement, and that's replacing those aging infrastructure components like pipes and pump stations to make our system more reliable and make sure that we provide the necessary service to our customers. And then there still is some additional slices there in capital improvement, and that is to support growth in the city. And the current policy by the city is to provide a certain amount of capital investment to promote new development and growth in the city. A further drill down on the water main replacement, that one wedge in that pie is just looking at the 2020 funding, and this represents an annual ongoing funding, almost $10 million. And that's important for us because we have some pipe in the ground that's older, and we want to try to get out ahead of it and replace it prior to catastrophic failure, and then also replace pipe, the small problems that occur that can be more easily addressed as a spot repair. So what we're talking about is 5 to 7 miles of water mains every year that we replace. Some people ask, well, is that enough? It is a replacement rate that is that's consistent with a national guideline through the AWWA, the American Water Works Association, and represents what in most people's thinking is a responsible rate of replacement of your system. We could replace more. Of course, that would mean additional spending, capital improvement spending. So we're doing what I would characterize as a responsible rate of replacement of our water line system. We're also talking about new construction of loops in our system. If you have a pipe that dead ends, the water quality can present problems there. And we want to make sure we have safe drinking water for all of our customers. So we put loops into the system so the water can circulate better. And then also we have just repairs that are done in our arterial streets, because when you tear up a street to do an arterial project, a road project, it's really smart to take advantage of that timing and to make replacements to needed pipes at that time as well. And then we also want to make sure we put enough money aside for the replacement of large diameter pipes, the big transmission pipes that provide water into a neighborhood area. When you look at the sewer side of main replacement, again, the collection replacement that we do every year, almost $6 million a year. That's a responsible level of replacement of sewer pipes. We have lift stations that collect sewage and then lift it up so that it can gravity feed to the treatment plant, for example. And then when we have this particularly large investment, this is a 1 year, not something that we do every year, a $15 million project to replace a 77-inch sewer main that's actually running underneath Interstate 135. And so trying to look for those components that present the greatest risk to the city, we've identified this pipe as needing to be replaced. And so there's plans underway right now to replace this large diameter sewer pipe. So as you can see, we have some aggressive renewal and replacement spending, and it reflects the commitment that council has given staff to make sure that we take care of our aging infrastructure. But that's not the end of the story. When you look at the operation and maintenance costs, it's the labor, the salaries, and those sorts of electricity, chemicals. You think of those sorts of costs. But even that cost, when you look at it, 42% of that cost is for debt service on capital improvement projects. So even a large amount of the O&M costs that drives rate increases is associated with the financial costs for making these infrastructure replacements. So as you can see, infrastructure replacement is the big driver for our O&M, for our sewer rate increases. When you look at our rate projections, they're based on projections, estimates, assumptions, and we want to make sure that we take a very conservative approach in our estimates so that we don't surprise you in future years saying that we are going to be able to meet this kind of a rate increase. As you can see, we've done our best to kind of levelize those out so there aren't surprises to our ratepayers. But to avoid a sudden increase in one of those years, we try to use conservative estimates in projecting what those rate increases are. And to give you an example, the Northwest Water Facility, it's actually locked in. The cost of that very large project is locked in with a guaranteed maximum price. That provides us with some certainty of what our costs are going to be associated with that project. We also have a emergency fund of $24 million to take care of problems with the existing water treatment plant during the construction of the new one, and it's at $24 million now. We add $2 million to it each year, and if we should be able to get to the other side of construction and not have any significant problems with the old treatment plant, we'll reinvest that money back into our system. Similarly, on the biological nutrient removal, which is the sewer treatment plant, it's a non-discretionary project. Unlike the water treatment plant, which was a very good idea, a needed infrastructure improvement, the biological nutrient removal upgrades to two of our sewer treatment plants and part of our collection system is being required by regulators. And so it's not something that we have a choice on. We have to do it. The question is, how can we do it in a way that's smart and that has the least impact on our ratepayers? And we do that through, for example, WIFIA funding, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And also the fact that the approach that we're taking is really reliant on value-added engineering. So we have an amount budgeted in our CIP that are covered by these rates, but we're very keen on the idea to learn lessons learned from the water treatment plant, where you can realize significant cost savings if you engage in what's called value-added engineering, to where you get the same functionality, but you reduce the project cost. When you look at the assumptions that go into estimating making these rate projections, at the Northwest Water Facility, our WIFIA costs, our federal loan costs for that program was 1.17%, an extraordinary good low percentage. And similarly, the state revolving loan fund, which finances the other half of that water project, is 1.48%, still a really good percentage. We, in our assumptions, have assumed a 4% WIFIA and SRLF cost of the interest rate. So as you can see, we're making sure that we don't lowball that interest rate. In our projections, we're going as high as 4% to make sure that the numbers that we present to you are conservative, and hopefully there won't be any surprises in the future. So one of the things that we always show you all each year when we bring this to you is, how does this look like? What does this look like for the customer? Well, we always use these 5 different classes: 3 residential classes, 1 commercial class, and 1 industrial class. And we make residential classes, we divide it up into a low, mid, and high water use type of a customer. And generally what we'll see is the mid is representative of most of our customers, mid residential. And what this will mean, a combined water and sewer bill increase, what people will see as an increase on their monthly bill is $3.77 a month. So that gives you some sort of a sense on the impact on our customers for this kind of a proposed rate. We have another measure that helps you understand where we are in terms of our rates, and that is, how competitive are we? How do we compare to our peers, both in population and geography? And so what we've done is we've gathered some peers, both looking at it both from a geographic perspective and a population perspective. And the reason why we've had to kind of take these extraordinary steps is, in the past we used Black & Veatch's annual rate survey, and that was really good because you got all the rates all the way across the country. But it's only for the 50 largest city, and we just got bumped to 51, so we're no longer represented in that survey. But we've done this to try to get to the same sort of a place so that you can understand where we sit. So when you look at residential, that's the mid-level residential. When you look at a geographic comparison of how we sit, as you can see, you have Kansas City, Missouri, Olathe, Lawrence, and other cities in the region geographically around us. And down at the bottom, towards the bottom there, is Wichita. So you can see, in comparing us geographically, and when I say us, I mean a mid-level residential customer, we're down towards the lower end by comparison to some of our peers. So I think that's a good testament to the fact that council has been holding the staff's feet to the fire, requiring aggressive infrastructure replacement, but doing it in an efficient way that doesn't have a huge impact on our rate customers. Looking again at a geographical comparison, this time commercial customer, again with the same cities that we're talking about, again, we're down towards the bottom of the group, showing the same sort of a thing. And finally, in industrial commercial customer geographic comparison, again, we're down towards the bottom of the group. So it shows that for all customer classes, Wichita enjoys a lower ranking in terms of total cost for utilities. We then look at population. This may be a little bit better comparison because if you use geographic, there may be cities and treatment facilities and utilities that just aren't quite the same as ours. It's kind of an apples to pears comparison. So what we try to do is to try to find those cities that were of comparable size and had comparable facilities that they had to cover and operate and replace and renew. And so as you can see, when you look at New Orleans, Cleveland, Arlington, Texas, we're down towards the lower end of the spread. So when you look at a more apples to apples comparison, we continue as looking at residential, mid-residential comparison to be towards the lower end. And the same sort of thing goes for a commercial down towards the end. And if I'm flying by these too fast, please let me know. And then finally, industrial, again, we're down towards so if you look at it by geography, or if you look at it by population, like types of utilities to cover, Wichita enjoys ranking at the lower end of our peer cities. So looking ahead, there are some things that need to make sure that you all are aware of, and one is that we've done what they call a cost of service analysis, or COSA, and we do this every 4 or 5 years, and we're engaged in one right now. And what that means is we look at all the costs that the utilities has to cover, and where all the revenues come from, all the different classes, all the different kinds of customers, and we evaluate whether our rate system is fair. And what we mean by that is, are we recovering costs from those customers that are creating those costs, but also looking at things like social equity and making sure that we have those brought out in the discussion. We'll be bringing to you folks here in the early part of next year, 2023, the preliminary results of that COSA analysis to get guidance from council on what sorts of policies you'd like to see promoted in our rate structure. So it's not just a matter of what the rates are at, but the very structure of how the rates are calculated, and we'll be bringing that back to council early next year. So our recommendation this morning is that you approve the recommended rate adjustment of combined 5.13% for 2022. That would start in January 1, 2022, and place the ordinances on first reading. And at this point, I'd like to stand for any questions.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, sir. Alan, appreciate the presentation, and I know this is a major investment. Water and sewer infrastructures are big ticket items. They are legacy investments, and I appreciate the future planning that the city is doing along these lines. I don't know that every city that are peers to us are making these kind of investments. So building upon the slides that you had, 95 through 98, they're talking about our peer cities and how we compare. And early in your presentation, you talked about the national average on the increases that we're seeing. As we go through this process with the COSA, I would like to know what our peer cities are doing in terms of their increases. And are they making those same kind of investments? I think it's a story to tell when we're talking to companies about locating in Wichita, the cost of doing business, and water and sewer being a major driver, especially with those commercial applications, and that we're making these investments now. And yes, it's small increases, but I'd like to know how that compares to some of our peer cities, and are they doing those type of things, and what are their rate increases projected to be? So that's for future, not today.
We'll make sure we cover that, sir, in our COSA analysis.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I should have pressed my button first. So building upon Councilmember Fry, that's really good information, and including what he requested, I think we should give that to Visit Wichita as well and use that as folks are looking at Wichita. Our overall costs are lower, and looking at Kansas City's water cost is, I'm glad I live in Wichita. The second thing, on one of the slides, I didn't write it down, you mentioned that if we didn't use that $24 million for the current treatment plant, we could use that for other projects. So do you have, or have you began to build a list of major projects or higher priority projects that are shovel-ready that we could use for that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council member. What we do is we create a list of all needed projects. It's prioritized by the consequence of failure. And we have some that are above the line, and those are the ones that get into the CIP that are covered in the rate projections that we provide you. And that's some that are below the line that if and when we are able to get the funding, or when the time comes that the funding can be applied to them, they're already ready. So we've thought them out. We've done some design work on them. So some of the examples could be making, what are we going to do with the existing treatment plant when it is abandoned? Are we going to mothball it? And what does that mean? Is it going to be a backup in the sense that we can quickly, with very little expense, reactivate it in case something happens at our other treatment plant. That's a kind of a below-the-line expense that we've identified and have done some thinking about. And other projects like water lines and pump stations that aren't at failure but rank high enough to be on that list. So answer your question is yes, sir, we've got a list already.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Of course.
There's one other factor involved in all of this, and that's the recently approved infrastructure bill. And you all have seen a summary of that bill in terms of 3 categories of infrastructure that are funded. Water and sewer is one of those, and there is money, I think, in this first round going to state revolving loan funds. We'll be taking a look at that, and staff's in the process of doing a drill down on the infrastructure categories to determine how competitive we could be and whether or not there's some projects below the line that we can move up if we have favorable funding.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you, Alan. Is there input from the public? See no input from the public. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there continuing discussion on this item? If there's no further discussion, then I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the combined 5.13% rate adjustment for 2022, place the ordinance on first read and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Biological nutrient removal design services agreement and revised project budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, good morning, members of the council. Alan King, Director of Public Works and Utilities. Bringing before you today one of those big projects that we were talking about, the biological nutrient removal, which is required of us by KDHE and EPA to meet these requirements because we treat water and then discharge that treated water into the rivers of the state and of the United States. And so it's important that we meet certain water quality requirements for that before we discharge it into the rivers. And this is one of those requirements that the city must meet. And so we're preparing, we're looking ahead, and we're getting ready for it to meet that requirement. And what I'd like to talk to you today is about one of the steps in that precedes actually constructing this project. Capital Improvement Program back in 2019 and 20 set aside $1 million for an evaluation and design step to look at what does this new upgraded plant or plants even look like and what are our options. And they actually developed a very comprehensive business case evaluation. And in that business case evaluation, it appeared that there was a particular configuration and approach that we wanted to settle on. And then what we'll be looking at is in 2024 through 2028, there will be about a $355 million amount in the budget that would cover the construction of these projects. And that's included in our rate projections that I just shared with you earlier to cover these future expenses. On January 28th of 2020, we had had a workshop where we presented what it was that we were thinking about doing and what the approach would be. And in July 6th, 2021, City Council approved a WIFIA, or Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, letter of interest. This is the first step in getting this kind of a special funding that we did enjoy and are enjoying in the Northwest Water Treatment Plant. What it does is it allows you to borrow money from the federal government at a very, very low interest rate, and more importantly, not start payments on that until 5 years after the project is completed. And that really helps us with keeping the rates at an acceptable place for our citizens. Well, we went ahead and put together an LOI, a letter of interest for funding, and then another step that we took was we identified a consultant to act as our owner's rep. It's very important for us to have an owner's representative that looks at the design, has another set of eyes looking at the design, looks at submittals, keeps the project on track. It's a very important part of a project, a large project like this, and it showed its value in the Northwest Water Treatment Plant project where we had a owner's rep. So the EPA WIFIA program selection, we got an announcement December 2nd that our LOI was accepted and we were invited to apply for the loan. In this kind of a type of a funding project, the difficult part, the competitive part, is the LOI. Once you get the LOI approved and they invite you to apply, it's pretty much a done deal. You just have to successfully cross all the T's and dot all the I's in the application, which will eventually lead to a negotiation with EPA for the actual contract with them on what the terms of payment are, EBE, DBE levels, and the like. So good news for us is that we actually, our LOI was approved and we've been invited to invite. This is huge. There would be a significant greater rate increase if we had to pay for this mandatory project through the normal means of revenue bonds instead of having this opportunity available to us. The application requirements, what we have to do at this application stage is that we have to do an environmental assessments. We have to get the design from the 3 to 5% design that it is at now. That's the conceptual design level. Gives you an idea about the approach you're going to take. That was what was put in the LOI so that the EPA knows what it is that you're thinking about doing. We have to bring that to a 30% design. We have to verify the project costs, dust off the estimates to make sure that they're still legitimate. We have to confirm the schedule. That's an important part because there are certain requirements on when you start the project to be eligible for this loan. We have to have our financial position of the city, and particularly the utility, examined to make sure that we are credit worthy for this loan. And all of this is due October 21st of 2022. And so that sounds like a lot of time, but it's really short when you consider all the pieces that have to be addressed to get ready for that application submittal. So the complete negotiation of loan agreement and terms and conditions will be coming back to council sometime in the future. We anticipate March 2023 with what we think are the final terms of the WIFIA loan contract for council's review and approval. There's also something called the KDHE State Revolving Fund, and what that is that's the other half of the project. So we try to fund about half the project with WIFIA money and the other half of the project with KDHE money. They're very similar in that they have low interest rates and attractive repayment schedules. Using the WIFIA will only allow you to go to half the project, as will SRF will only go up to a certain amount. By having them complement together, that brings us the best of both worlds in terms of being able to finance this project. And again, it's what allows us to keep our rates increases low because of these two sources of funding. We anticipate seeking final city council approval soon after the approval of the final WIFIA funding. So where that puts us in the schedule for this project is, I know it's kind of hard to read, but there's a little dot down towards the middle in the bottom says design contract approval. That's where we're at right now. So we've done the preliminary design, we've brought on an owner's rep, we've submitted the LOI. So we're all the way out to the point now where it shows towards the end of 2021 where it's time to actually assign consultants to the design that's going to get us to that 30%, or we can submit the contract or the application. What we did was in an attempt to capitalize on expertise and specialization among consultants, we broke this project purposely into 3 pieces. One was Plant 1 improvements, one was Plant 2 improvements, and the other were necessary collection system, the piping that goes in between these to make this all work. This is all consistent with the BCE and the design concept that was previously approved by council. And we believe that by dividing it up this way, we're going to get the best designs, and we're also going to get the best prices for the designs and for the construction costs that will follow from the designs. So what we did was we put together a steering committee. We wanted to make sure we had a broad perspective of these proposals, these 3 different proposals. So we had interviews, we had members of council, members from the public, large water customers that represented the commercial sector. In other words, we put together what we thought was a group that had a way of a broad perspective on the project itself. And then these proposals were submitted to this staff screening and selection committee. Plant 2, there were 2 proposals, and they presented on October 18. Plant 1, there was 1 proposal proposed on, actually presented on October 20th. And then the collection system, there were 2 proposers, and they both presented on October 21st. By the way, this is consistent with the manner in which the city makes sure that they competitively and transparently solicit bids and make a decision, a selection process. So this is all consistent with how the city conducts its selection process. The general criteria for the proposers were they had to make a case for their project approach, their relevant experience. Have they done this before someplace? Proposed staff assignments. What were the qualifications of the people they would commit to be on the team? And proposed schedule, and then EBE, DBE participation. At the end of the selection process, Plant 2 was CDM Smith was selected. Plant 1, Professional Engineering Consultants was selected. And for the collection system, also professional engineering consultants were selected. So when we talk about what the work is that these consultants would do, we're talking about step 1. Step 1 of a 2-step process. Step 1 is to take the project from the concept 3 to 5% all the way to a 30% design so that we can submit the application and to conduct the environmental reviews that we talked about and to meet the necessary requirements for the WIFIA and SRF fundings. That's the first step. After that, we'll have a better understanding of what the project looks like, and then we will, with those same firms, conduct a negotiation to amend the contract with step 2, and that is to finish the project all the way through to final design, to put together design packages, and to do some support work through the parts of the construction project. So this is what we're talking about today as step 1, but we will be coming back if we're successfully negotiating with these consultants a step 2 proposed amendment sometime in the future. The provisions for all contracts, they need to provide the documentation for the funding. So when I say all projects, I mean all 3 of them, the Plant 1, Plant 2, and the collection system. They have to provide the documentation needed for the applications for SRF and WIFIA. We need to make sure that that there's a project steering committee that is following along on this project, and we get input from our steering committee. We want to make sure that we have ongoing informational meetings and updates with the DABs and other groups. We have to make sure that we coordinate very closely with the regulatory agencies. We found that is very valuable in getting approval of the design packages as they come up and keeping them in the process early. And then we have to make sure that we meet all the EPA and KDHE provisions. We also want to make sure that we have EBE, DBE goals from EBA language in the design build part of this project. So when I say through the design and the build, we're doing this design bid build, but we want to make sure that we protect the EBE, DBE targets. They're a necessary target in the funding, but we also want to make sure that the chosen consultants take advantage of opportunities to exceed those goals. And it sounds like for some of them that's already the case. For example, with the CDM, they were targeting 10%, and it looks like they may be on their way even to 17% at this point. So we want to encourage EBE, DBE participation in these projects. Plant 2, specifically, we're talking about CDM Smith, having an agreement with them. Their plant modifications are related to converting the biological process to what's called an A2O with a side stream treatment. That's a little bit tricky as far as getting it right, and so we were real interested in actual experience with those kinds of plants, not just with those plants, but as a lead in the design and the design of a system that was large enough to be comparable to what the city is embarking on. Odor control was a huge consideration. Plant 2 is out in the middle of an area that now is surrounded by neighborhoods. And so, although we're doing the best we can with what we got, there are times when odors are a problem for the neighborhoods. And so this is our opportunity to really improve the odor controls at that particular facility. We also have parts of this equipment in Plant 2 that have just gotten towards the end of their useful life. This is our opportunity to make replacements and renewals for some of that older equipment and take advantage of this project and make that whole treatment plant more like new. And then the other thing we're looking at is a part of the process for treatment is it generates methane gas. And that methane gas presently is being flared, which means it just goes to a place and is burned off to the atmosphere. We want to look at opportunities to be able to use that methane gas to save, for example, on our gas costs for heating our treatment process, our digesters, making actual use of that gas instead of just flaring it to the atmosphere. What we're talking about with Plant 2 CDM is not to exceed fee of step 1 of $5,568,000, and what I can tell you is that's significantly lower than the estimated cost. We had budgeted or estimated $8.8 million, and they're coming in at $5.5 million, so we're doing quite well in terms of the price negotiated. The budget will have a $34 million remaining engineering related services. Plant 1. There are 2 sewer treatment plants that are going to have to be addressed in this B&R project. The other one is Plant 1, which is north of Plant 2, and it feeds into Plant 1. We're going to have to do some additional grit and removal, and handling of that grit. There are some control or some odor control issues that are there too. We need to apply these efforts to getting a better handle on our odor coming from there. Again, there's old equipment that needs to be renewed and replaced, so we're looking for rehabilitation. When we look at our step 1 for this particular project, it's $1,080,000 is what we negotiated with PEC, and we actually had a budgeted amount of $1.48 million. So again, we're ahead of the game so far in terms of the contract amounts that we're negotiating with the folks, with the consultants. And then finally, the collection system. There's some important upgrades and pipes that need to be installed to make all of this work. We did the alignment, the study to confirm routing of the new asset. That was part of what has to be done. We have to consider future options and opportunities to serve other areas. Future condition assessment of some of the existing assets. This is an opportunity for us to replace some old and aging pipe while we're at it. Not to exceed $600,000 is what the amount is, and what we had budgeted was $830,000. So again, we're ahead in terms of the price of the negotiated contract. So when you look at the total costs of PEC Plant 1, Step 1, CDM Plant 2, Step 1, PEC contract for the collection system, Step 1, and then we have some additional costs that we may have to make sure that we cover, and those are the anticipated financing and handling costs associated with the WIFIA and SRLF funds. So we need to identify, do our best guess on what those costs are, and that's about a little bit more than $2 million. We need to make sure that that receives budget authority for a total budget authority of $9,319,234. So at this point, what staff is asking is that you approve the 3 design agreements with the 2 different consultants, adopt the amending resolution, and authorize the necessary signature, and I'll stand for any questions.
All right, questions for staff? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Alan, 2 quick questions. First, you brought up the methane being sold. Is that pure, or not sold, but burned off? Is that pure enough to be sold, like as a revenue generator for the city?
In its current form, it is not. It's not even pure enough for us to use it in our treatment plant. We're actually buying off the market natural gas and using it to heat our digesters. So you have to keep the digesters at a certain temperature. What we'd like to do is to look at the possibility of installing some what they call scrubbers. And what it does is it takes enough of the waste product out of the methane gas to make it to where it can be used within the plant. And if there's still some left over, maybe even put it back into the natural gas pipeline. That is an option that we're looking at as well. So we're trying to keep our minds open, but what we have to do is we have to get it scrubbed to a point where it's usable.
Awesome. My other question, I appreciate the special provision believe this is A, around disadvantaged business enterprises. I just had a couple questions on that. So I highlighted it is non-binding. Is that the same as it is with the water treatment plant, or is that binding?
I'm sorry, what, sir?
The goals says the engineer must also adopt non-binding goals of awarding 4.1% of the contract amount to minority business enterprises and 6.9% to women business enterprises, but it's non-binding. So is that the same as the water treatment plant contract?
The water treatment plant has goals that they have to meet, and the EPA, the language in the WIFIA is also targets, is what they call them, but there are no penalties associated with not meeting those targets. What we do is we try to establish a level of comfort that they get it and that they see the advantages of it, and when we see them already exceeding the anticipated percentages, it gives us a level that they are going to be able to hit and exceed those targets.
I was happy to hear that as well. And then just for my own information, why is there a difference between the minority business enterprises and the women business enterprises? One is 4.1% and the other is 6.9%.
Uh-oh, stumped.
Chair recognizes the manager.
Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I bring up a staff member who would?
Of course.
Didn't get very far into the presentation before I got stumped.
Actually get through 124 slides.
This is Bill Perkins, project manager.
Bill Perkins, Public
Welcome.
Works and Utilities. I probably can't give you a complete answer of why the difference, but that is the direct language that the EPA uses on all the contracts that have to include that provision. So that's where the numbers came from.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, do you have further questions?
Nope, I'm done. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, sir. Alan, if you could go back to 117, slide 117. I think that's the right number. Yes, thank you. So I'm going to use your own words here, where you said this is tricky and getting it right. A very complicated process, especially when you talk about design, and there can be complications throughout the process, and we've had this experience with other firms as well. Is step 1 to step 2 an automatic, or are there off-ramps that would, if something was not right or we were having difficulty, and I'm not trying to foreshadow anything, I'm just looking for protection for the city going forward. Is it step 1 to step 2 an automatic?
Mr. Mayor and council member, it is not automatic. It would be an amendment. The amendment would have to be brought before and approved by council. And so if for whatever reason we did not feel like we could bring that amendment to you, or if council decided they could not support such an amendment, we would have to figure out what the off-ramp, what would be the design efforts going forward.
I appreciate that. And again, as someone who served on the selection committee for this, I'm very confident in the selections that the committee made. And I'm thankful for all the numbers that they provided, as you said, versus what we'd projected, and they came in under, and plans that were presented were very thorough. So I have confidence that the selections are right, but I just wanted to make sure that if there was an opportunity, we were not forced into going a direction that we didn't want to. So thank you.
Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? See none. Bring discussion on this item back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this item? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, and not really a question, but just a comment, if I may. I had the opportunity, along with council members Fry and Sorello, to sit on the selection committee for this, and really wanted to thank staff. When I was reviewing the proposals, I sat there at home reviewing them for hours with my phone out, looking up definitions just to make sure I fully understood. But staff was incredibly responsive and helpful, and made the process as streamlined and easy as they could. So thank you for letting me be a part of the process. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to next steps.
Is there further discussion on the item? Councilmember Tuttle just did such a good job. Why doesn't Councilmember Tuttle make the motion?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to do so. It'd be my pleasure. I would make the motion that the City Council approve the Plant 1 design agreement with PEC, approve the Plant 2 design agreement with CDM Smith, approve the selection of the system design agreement with PEC, adopt the amending resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Grant application and memorandum of understanding, Calfskin Creek watershed.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of Wichita City Council, Don Henry, Public Works and Utilities. The item before you at the moment involves a application for federal funding for flood control improvements in the Calfskin Creek drainage basin, as well as a memorandum of understanding between the city and Sedgwick County for funding the local share should the grant be awarded for the project. Just a little bit of background, if you'll recall from the presentation in September for the letter of intent for this project, the Calfskin Basin is roughly a 17.5 square mile area in West Wichita, from the Calfskin Creek near Mays Road eastward to Calfskin Creek, and then both north and south of Kellogg, from about 13th Street north down to about the half-mile marker between 31st Street south and 39th. And it includes well-established areas of development. There's rural settings with rural development and agricultural activities. And if you'll recall, Wood Environment, the city staff engaged with Wood Environment and carried out an iterative modeling process and a number of studies to understand both the hydrology within the basin, the dynamics of reoccurring rainfall, and developed some mitigation options to address the widespread severe flooding in the area. And as a result, a project rose to the top that would put in place 2 dry detention dams and dry detention areas. One of those would be the northwest part of the basin near 13th Street and 167th. The other one would be in the southern part of the basin on the Calfskin near Pawnee and 135th Street West. If you'll recall, council directed staff to submit the letter of intent for this project, and we made the timely submission and are happy to announce that the Kansas Division of Emergency Management provided the initial screening of the project. That division provides screening for all of the BRIC eligible projects in the state of Kansas. And this project has been selected, and the city, in conjunction with the county, has been invited to apply for the federal funding on this project. We already have a company on board, Tidal Basin, that has a professional grant writer. He's been working this in parallel and is prepared to move forward with submission of the application by the end of the year, should this item be approved today. Wood has finished up the rest of the technical work that's required to accompany the application. Some updates on that. The highlights include a calculated cost-benefit ratio of 3.27% for the proposed 2-dam project, which is very favorable and well above 1.0. The cost estimate for the project remains the same as previously presented at $40 million. The BRIC program covers 75% of the cost should the grant be awarded. The local match would be 25% or $10 million and would be split 50-50 between the city and the county for a total of $5 million each. Wood's work has also included an estimate for the future annual operating cost, and those are currently estimated to be $28,000 a year. And those, if the project's built and these costs are realized, they would be rolled into future funding agreements with Sedgwick County on the other flood control operations. Project benefits includes removal of an estimated 520 acres from the 1% annual chance floodplain. This includes both developed and undeveloped acres, with the possibility of making currently undeveloped acres developable. The benefit of that is estimated to be $5 million or greater. There are more than 180 structures in this floodplain that would be removed as a result of this project, and it would address the life safety concerns for more than 200 homes and 7 streets that are currently impassable during heavy rainfall. And I think it's important to distinguish what we mean here by impassable. There's widespread nuisance flooding across the city. Due to the topography of the city being relatively flat, the fact that we've developed through time, we've got areas of the city that have infrastructure that was put in place before we had modern design standards. And so we realize temporary nuisance flooding when it rains. The water comes up, the streets drain it off, and it goes back down. And that can even result in closing sections of streets off or intersections, but there's still ways around those problem areas. The type of flooding that we're talking about here in the calfskin that'll be addressed is the kind that actually cuts off whole streets or neighborhoods. And the depth of the water is such that emergency vehicles would not be able to get in. So those are the types of problems that this project will address. It would also preserve 700 acres of open space in the areas of the dry detention dams. This could be used for possible future ecological benefits or recreational purposes. And that's also one of the important factors of the BRIC program. I think you'll recall this slide from the previous presentation. I wanted to include it again here because it really kind of brings the remarkable benefits of this project to life. This is in the Wheat Ridge edition. I believe it's the corner of Rogers and Lindale. And if you'll look at the image on the left, that's the current condition when we get a 100-year storm. You can see that the streets and ditches are completely inundated. Water is up into yards, and under this case, at this area, there's probably a high likelihood of these structures taking on some water too. And with the 2 dry detention dams in place, based upon the modeling outputs that Wood generated with this proprietary augmented reality tool that they actually went out to this location and used their tool to generate these images. You see that the same street is dry, completely passable, and the grass ditches in the area are functioning as designed. So the Kansas Division of Emergency Management is the gatekeeper, so to speak, to the FEMA, the federal portal for grant submission. Good news is that we've got a really good partner in KDEM. They've already granted the city staff access to the federal portal, so we are prepared to move forward with submission of the grant before the end of year deadline. The memorandum of understanding that's before you for your consideration includes financial terms that I previously mentioned, estimated project cost of $40 million, the 75-25 split, and then the local share of $5 million for the city, $5 million for the county. And then it also acknowledges that future operation costs would be split 50-50 and rolled into future flood control agreements. And so with that, I'd like to close the presentation and make staff's recommendations to approve the memorandum of understanding with Sedgwick County, approve staff to submit the electronic grant application, and authorize necessary signatures. Thank you, and with that, I'll stand for any questions that you have.
Open up for questions for staff. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Don, just a real quick question. Is this the same like WIFIA? So when you get invited to actually apply with a grant, you're pretty much going to get the funding?
That's a good point, and thank you for making that distinction. This, unlike WIFIA, where if you're invited to apply, it's pretty much a shoe-in. This is a highly competitive process for this fiscal year. Across the nation, there's $200 million available in funds, and you see this is a $40 million project, but I say that because this is highly competitive. And so we have to, there's no guarantee that this is going to be improved. Now, that said, we do have strong support. We have a congressional letter of support with signatures from U.S. Senators Jerry Moran and Roger Marshall, as well as from Congressman Ron Estes. The project benefits that we touched on earlier hit all the markers within the scoring matrix for the project, and so we do believe that we're going to compete well and have a strong project, but the outcomes are up in the air.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. Really not a question. I just wanted to thank staff for this proposal. This is a great opportunity for continued development, opportunity, safety of our neighbors, and commerce. So that's a win-win all the way around. You talked about the benefit-cost ratio. That's fantastic. I also want to just thank our partners at the county for walking through this with us and support. Had a lot of conversation with Commissioner Dennis and getting their support to make this application, I think, is going to really help. And so I just want to thank them.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate everybody's assistance on this as well. This is something that I inherited when Longwell was council member over this area, and then it was redistricted 10 years ago and into my district, and this has been something the neighborhood's been very vocal about. I appreciate the artist renderings there. I think, Don, you've seen the originals that the neighbors have seen us with fish going down those ditches. So I know myself and Councilmember Fry are very thankful that you guys have worked on this together. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Further questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you. Is there input from the public? See no input from the public. Is there further discussion on this item from the bench? There's no further discussion. The chair recognizes Councilmember Bluebog as he was so eloquent in making a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make the motion to approve the budget and adopt the bonding resolution.
Is there a second?
Was that the?
I believe it's a,
item?
and I'm sorry for throwing you on the spot. It's actually,
Yep. Authorize the memorandum of understanding and with the Sedgwick County and authorize staff to submit the electronic grant application.
seconded by Councilmember Fry. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Design concept and supplemental design agreement number 1 for improvements to Amadon Avenue Bridge at the Arkansas River.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. The item before you this morning is a request for approval of a design concept and supplemental design agreement number 1 for improvements to the Amadon Street Bridge at the Arkansas River. Some quick history and background on this project. In July of this year, the City Council approved an agreement with JEO Consulting Group to evaluate options for rehabilitation or replacement of the Amadon Bridge at the Arkansas River. This project is deemed necessary based upon the most recent biennial bridge inspection and the overall condition of the bridge. On November 1st of this year, the District 6 Advisory Board unanimously approved the design concept, which included closure of the bridge for construction, which is something I want to focus on again here in just a moment. The existing bridge was built in 1964, so it's effectively reaching the end of its service life. It's a 4-lane structure with a substandard width sidewalk on one side. I'll talk about that more in just a minute too with the proposed improvements. The median that you see in the middle of the bridge creates some challenges for overall maintenance and snow removal. You can see the crack sealing that's been done, some of the patching on the deck. The deck itself needs attention right now, but there's enough other issues with this bridge that we are recommending replacement of the full structure. This is a little bit harder to see than I thought it was. This is looking at the underside of the bridge, and some of what you see is fairly normal for a bridge this age. Right at the bottom of that picture is a substantial crack in this beam, which is a structural issue of concern. That does not mean this bridge is in peril. That does not mean that there's any issues at the moment. If we don't do something soon, though, this bridge would certainly have to be posted for loading, and at some point in time, that becomes an issue for trucks using the area, even for emergency service vehicles. So this is hard to see what this is, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we looked at a cost evaluation, overall life cycle cost evaluation for 4 different things. That included the basic minimum for patching the deck, replacing the full deck. The third option we looked at was replacement of the superstructure only, which means we leave the piers in place and replace everything you see above that. And then the fourth option we looked at was full replacement. So to elaborate a little bit on that, the first option I talked about for patching the deck, which would have to be done at a minimum, and this would include some repairs to that beam that we showed you, is estimated cost is $2.3 million. That would extend the life of the bridge 10 years. Second option we looked at for complete redecking is $2.4 million, and that would extend the life 20 years, so certainly it'd be an advantage over the first. Superstructure replacement is just short of $5 million, and it would add 30 years to the life of the bridge. Our recommendation for full replacement with the bridge closed for construction is an estimated cost of $6 million, and would get us 70 years. Now, obviously, during that 70 years, looking at a full life cycle cost, there's some maintenance got to be done. That's been done on this bridge to this point that's got it here. I did want to mention that we looked at full replacement while maintaining traffic. It can be done, but it adds an estimated $2.5 million to the price tag. That would get us the same result. I will tell you there's some issues with that too, with related to public safety and worker safety. It can be done. It has been done. It's a challenge with permitting. We are limited to the time that we can work in the river, typically from September to March. That became an issue for us recently on the Harry Street Bridge over the Arkansas River and delayed that project. We're thinking this project, as presented today, would close the bridge for 12 to 14 months. If we looked at building under traffic, it's quite possible that this could stretch out over 2 years for full construction. So we have safety issues during that time, and especially with the estimated additional cost of $2.5 million, we think it's better to just close the bridge and try to get this done. So the proposed improvements include 4-foot lanes without the median, a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the west side of the bridge, and a 6-foot sidewalk on the east side of the bridge. Right now, there is not sidewalk on the east side of Amidon in this area, but I will tell you over time, some of the bridges that were in the older areas of the city and the bridges that we annexed from Sedgwick County, that they had a policy to only put sidewalk on one side or no sidewalk at all, has created some issues for us in the areas that are now in the city where sidewalk is desired. To retrofit a bridge, just add sidewalk is an expensive endeavor, and it's certainly worth the value to do that now. I'll mention real quick looking at this, and I know it doesn't show a real good view north and south. We did look at the possibility of building a new bridge off alignment. That's one way to keep traffic, potentially save some costs. You can see to the north, just barely on the east side, if we did that, we would get into some of the commercial properties there. On the west side, there's apartments that would be impacted, and then also on the west side of the south, we would get into residential properties. It would put the price tag even considerably higher than what we looked at as building it under traffic. So we looked at detour options. I want to talk a little bit more about the closure itself with the District Advisory Board and those who are invited to that, either going to West Street or to Broadway using 13th and 21st Street. The thought was that most everybody in this area is trying to get towards the downtown area to the east and the south. So we'd recommended this option for now as the formal detour. We are still working with Wichita Fire Department. With where their facilities are in this area, they think it might work better to actually have the formal detour go west, because what happens is if you put more traffic in front of their facilities during this period of time, it could create some issues for them on timing, but we will get that resolved soon. So I wanted to talk about the bridge closure itself again real quick. You'll see the bridge is marked as red in the middle. Towards the bottom, the other crossing of the river is 13th Street. And then I might focus a little bit on the area of 21st and Amidon. I think most everybody's familiar with the Twin Lakes area. Pretty dense commercial, retail, restaurant use in the area. This is not unusual that we've had this situation before, but I just want to talk real quick about what our thoughts are and our plan are to help mitigate helping those businesses out as much as possible during this closure. We've engaged the communications team to look at a possible enhanced communication plan and outreach to these businesses. And it's not that we don't do that on our capital projects, because we do even when there's not a closure. But I think that what we're looking at is providing some advance notice. We've already notified these businesses in this area. They were invited to the District Advisory Board, and that notification included information on what our plan is here. But anyway, we're working on a plan with the communications team. You know, what we've done in the past, again, is provide as much advance notice as we can. We encourage the businesses to reach out to their customers in advance. with the world we live in now with social media and the ability to do that, it really helps. And what we've seen in other areas on projects is most of the time, it appears to us in talking to these businesses that their customers do want to be loyal and like to hear that there's, ahead of time, if there's going to be something like this with this bridge closure, we've seen that the businesses reaching out in advance does help try to keep people coming back to the area. So we'll continue to work on that and see what we can come up with. We'll have, well in advance of construction starting, we also provide some information to the media so the general public knows what's going to happen here. We've talked in the past about encouraging people to continue to frequent businesses in that area. So we'll wrap all that up together prior to going to construction. I will tell you, in the last 10 years, we have closed 4 bridges for reconstruction similar to this. Manissa Bridge was approximately 8 months directly adjacent to North High School, and there were commercial businesses that literally were right by that bridge. Lincoln Street Bridge, where the new dam is at, was closed well in excess of a year for replacement of the bridge and building of the new dam. Harry Street Bridge was the most recent one, and that ended up being a closure just over a year, especially because some of the environmental impact issues we had. The Pawnee Street Bridge over the Big Arc River is the best example I can give you that ended up being closed for over a year. It was actually unplanned until we ran into some problems with that bridge. There is commercial development not too far from both ends of that bridge. We did everything we could to provide communication to the businesses there, and I think overall things worked out okay. And I just want to provide a quick reminder, we could build this bridge under construction at an additional cost of $2.5 million. One more part of this is that the bridge project was identified for special consideration by the Design Council, allotting additional funding and requiring a higher level of aesthetic enhancement beyond standard design guidelines. The JEO team includes local artist Daniel Geegan, who will be involved with the design of the lighting and handrail enhancements on the bridge and whatever else that might be. The project will be returned to the City Council for approval of the final aesthetic design after a recommendation of approval by the Design Council. So I'd expect that to happen sometime in the spring for us to be able to stay on schedule. One of our goals in pending your approval today is to be able to begin the design and start the project next fall outside of that season that I talked about of being able to work in the river or being able to not work in the river. Construction again is planned to begin in the late summer and be completed in the fall of 2023. The design services fee to date is $20,540. The cost of supplemental agreement number 1 for completion of the final design is $320,560, bringing the total design contract to $341,100. The existing budget of $500,000, which was approved by the City Council on January 12th, 2021, will suffice for this supplemental agreement. With that, staff recommends City Council approve the design concept and supplemental design agreement number 1, authorize the necessary signatures, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Well, Gary, I'm a little concerned with closing a bridge down completely for at least a year. Is there concerns with fire and rescue, EMS getting to and from the businesses and the folks who live on the other side of the bridge? What other effects does this have by just pretty much closing down and cutting this thing off for about a year?
So we have spent quite a bit of time with fire and police already. They have, I mentioned other projects we've worked on in the past, and we have found it best to communicate with them as far in advance as we can, which we have already done. We continue to work with fire on this. So far, we have not heard considerable concerns from the fire department about response time. It is possible that it's going to extend response time, but what we've seen them do in the past is they'll change up their areas, and I'm not the expert on this, but I can just tell you what we've talked to them about. They have, with the time that they've got, what they've done, and we've seen in the past, have done a really good job to change up their coverage areas, whatever it is that they might do to accommodate this closure. Because I remember doing the same thing with the other 4 bridges that we had. One of them's not too far away here, being the Manissa Bridge. My experience with these projects and dealing with public safety services over time is they do a really good job of making this work.
All right. Further questions for staff? See none. Is there input from the public? Come on down. If you would like to speak to the item, just feel free to start making your way towards the front.
Do you need my name or anything?
Yeah, welcome. How this works for folks who might not have participated in public comment before is we ask for your name and your address for our record, and we ask that you keep it within 5 minutes. If you're finishing up a thought, I won't cut you off. I would kind of give you a signal. And if for some reason you're uncomfortable giving your address or or even name, we'll still let you talk. But that's roughly the protocol, so thank you.
Okay. So yes, I'm Clayton Pearson. I live at 1442 North Coolidge, which is North Riverside. First, for clarity, I just found out about this being presented today on Sunday, so I'm a little unprepared here. Some of you may recognize me as a part of the advocacy ambassador for Bike Walk Wichita. I am not speaking for Bike Walk Wichita. I'm speaking as a North Riverside resident and part-time bike commuter. So first off, I want to thank Public Works and Planning. Past few years, this would be what I consider the fourth improvement project for McLean and Amadon, if you consider from Maple to this bridge. All of those projects were done with a strong focus on safety. If you look at many of these projects from a traffic perspective and capacity, particularly with this bridge, we're noticeably increasing capacity if you measure it by moving people. We're multiplying capacity here. These are also solid improvements in community health, economic development, quality of life, sustainability, and for the fiscal resiliency of the city and the citizens. So my comments here are not to criticize this project. Even as it is, a couple of my preferences that I have do not raise to the level of objecting to this project as it is. However, I do have 3 suggestions for improvements, either for later or possibly in this project as it exists. First is the recognition that this bridge crosses over the backbone for the north and south route of alternative transportation in this city. This overlays the Arkansas River bike path that runs from 21st and West to Starlight Theater and beyond. Most of the east-west routes and connections overlay this route. As Gary mentioned, there's currently no connection at all on the east bank between the businesses and the residences to the south. So this is a major improvement. However, considering the connections with that bike path, I do think that this probably would have been better to also present to the Bike Ped Advisory Board for their input on maximizing the shared interest of this bridge and the path to maximize opportunity. My other 2 recommendations, I believe, would have been presented by the Bike Ped Board if that was been done. My only concern from a functional standpoint as it now exists is 6 feet of path on the east bank. From a purely perspective of pedestrian traffic, that does allow 2-way traffic for able-bodied pedestrians. However, once you introduce bikes, scooters, blind pedestrians, wheelchairs, 6 feet becomes a problem for 2-way traffic. Once they're on those paths, it becomes a one-way, whichever way you're headed. Combine that with 12-foot lanes, 4 12-foot lanes. I believe there is space to increase that pedestrian east bank to 8 to 10 feet. while still providing 12 feet for transit service on at least 2 of those lanes. According to the multimodal streets guidebook, you could even go down to 11 as a constraint. I'm kind of wondering if like a 12-foot for 2 of those lanes and 10 feet for another might be a better option there, if it's still an option. My third observation is from Maple to 21st, we have had historical speeding problems, safety problems, and resulting from a street that's overbuilt. That center concrete median that Gary mentioned is a permanent install, and it limits flexibility in later adaptations, such as dedicated transit lanes or moving the road diets that's already been approved further north. So if we were to keep a center dedicated median, I would prefer to see that installed in such a way that when conditions change in the future, that street can be adapted without undue cost. Did you have any questions?
There are no one on the board, so well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further input from the public? Welcome.
Doug Ballard, 920 Buffum. I live in Riverside. I've lived there since 1979, and we've talked about this. I just don't see any way to close that bridge down for a year and not allow anybody going across that. There's no good way to, because of the river. There's no other bridges, and they're so far away. I see the fire chief is here. The people that are west of McLean and south of the river, they're an island. I know that most of those people, first of all, do business up in the Twin Lakes area, but that looks dangerous to me. And I know it's an extra $2.5 million, but I just don't see any way to close that thing for a year. I mean, the traffic, the people that go from, say, Pawnee to go up north, they're not even going to hardly know how to get there. They're going to have to use GPS to get there. I mean, it's going to not just influence the traffic right there, it's going to send it back down, you know what I mean? Back down south. The people up north, I think they can probably survive, but it looks to me like the people that are west of McLean and south of the river, they're an island. And a year is a long time. So anyway, I mean, I could get into some other things, but you see the point. Thanks.
Further public input? All right, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Frye.
Gary, just a couple quick questions based on comments. For Mr. Pearson, he talked about that center barrier that's currently on the bridge. That's not included in our scope, right?
Correct. I didn't do a very good job of clarifying. We are not putting that back.
Okay. And then, as you looked at detours for traffic, did you also look at detours for the bike path? Because that bike path is well-traveled quite a bit there on the south side of the
So one of the things I should have mentioned too, and it dawned on me when Clayton started talking, is we plan, especially if the bridge is going to be closed, we're going to provide a temporary connection that comes up top to keep that bike path going. Because with the road closed there, what we'll do is bring that bike path up on each side of the bridge and have them cross Amidon there. We'll provide, ramps and whatever it takes. So that bike path connection will stay, not under the bridge, but up top. So yeah, I'm glad that came up.
All right, further discussion from the bench? See none. With that, we will give the floor over to Councilmember Claycomb, as this resides in District 6.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary, for the work that you've done on this. I know bringing it to DAB, and the DAB asked a lot of questions, and you were able to answer those, so I really appreciate that. I do understand that closing the bridge is an inconvenience and a hardship, but we have done this before. I've seen it across the city many times, and we've done it successfully. So I'd like to recommend that City Council approve the design concept, supplemental design agreement number 1, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2022-2024 Fraternal Order of Police Union Memorandum of Agreement.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. I'm Chris Bezruki, the HR Director. For your consideration is a tentative labor agreement between the City of Wichita and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 5. The proposed agreement is for 3 years and was approved by the FOP membership on December 2nd by a vote of 320 yea to 28 nay. I'd like to go over some of the highlights of the agreement for your consideration. It is for 3 years. It'll start towards the end of this month and will run towards the end of 2024. The agreement will cover approximately 640 commissioned officers in the Wichita Police Department. The agreement provisions will be incorporated in the revised budget that'll be coming back to you. Just some of the major highlights of the agreement. We'll start with the pay. In 2022, the agreement calls for a pay adjustment, a general pay adjustment for all commissioned officers at 4% above their rate. They will also be eligible for a 2.5% merit performance increase that has been standard. They will also have a code of conduct pay increase up to a rate of $2 per hour from the current rate of $1. In 2023, the contract calls for another pay adjustment of 1.5%, which is a little more traditional that we've been looking at for the last 10 years. It will still include a merit step provision for those officers eligible for that based on performance. It will also include a $1,000 retention bonus. We are looking at trying to retain officers with the cost of recruitment and training new officers. This is an issue that not just facing the city of Wichita, but many police departments across the country. So this is something for us that we think it is an investment in trying to retain experienced officers. The shift differential pay that a majority officers get for working off the duty shifts, off the day duty shift, will be incorporated into the rate of pay. And so it'll be an easier accountability issue for our payroll folks and for the police payroll folks as well. So that'll just be rolled into their rate of pay for those officers that would be eligible. In 2024, another general pay increase for that year of 1.5%, also include the merit step eligibility as well. The code of conduct pay will rise another 25 cents to a rate of $2.25 per hour. There will also be a $1,000 retention bonus payable at the end of the year. There again, the idea is just to try to keep officers engaged in the organization. With regards to 2022, the 4% increase, there was some pressure there with regards to us trying to stay competitive with our peer agencies. And so we were falling behind a bit. This does go a long way to bringing us into a comparable pay range. And so that was the need there. Some of the other highlights of the contract, some involves some pay. We did add Juneteenth as a paid holiday for the officers. We did add another well day if an officer there again doesn't use a lot of sick leave. There's an incentive there. If you don't use or you don't abuse sick leave, we'll reward you with a day off. Updated the annual equipment allowance, just to make sure that we're buying things that are eligible for police work. And then you'll see there that we eliminated the $100 fitness bonus provided to the eligible employees. That was in consideration of that 75-cent shift differential as well. So just rolling that in as opposed to an add-on cost. One, it's harder to administer. Two, when you do look at the comparable rates of pay with our peers, oftentimes you don't catch that $100 there. You don't catch the 75 cents there. So by rolling that into the pay matrix, then you'll be able to compare apples to apples in a more cohesive way as we look to stay competitive with those folks. There again, we're asking you to accept this for review, and we'll come back and answer any type of questions that you may have on the next council meeting of the 14th.
So the recommendation is to accept for review.
That's correct.
Questions for staff? Councilmember Bubag.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to get a better understanding about the flexibility pay, and specifically when there's something to where lunches are a lot of times they get interrupted, and do they add that to comp time, or do they say, hey, I'm taking off an hour early? I guess I'm asking the question because how do you schedule that as far as the officers coming in on the next shift and not knowing how many officers might be gone an hour early?
Yeah, those are good questions for sure, and I'm not probably the best person to answer those with regards to how the operations work there. With regards to the flexibility pay, as I recall, it was made there when officers attend DAB meetings and those type of things. So that was meant to make sure that was accounted for those type of meetings, not for everything else. And so there seemed to be some concern that they were using or the flexibility pay issue was being used for other things. And so I think they were trying to tighten that down to what the original intent is. On the lunch part, that's a good question. I don't have that answer. I'm not sure if that fits right there or not. There are some people from the department or at least from the FOP here that could probably answer that question for you if you like. Okay. Anybody from the department, or Hans, I guess, would be someone who would understand that issue.
I'm Hans Asmussen, current Vice President for the Toronto River Police. So for flexibility pay, that was for our members of our department that have to adjust their schedules on a more continual basis than your regular patrol officers that have a set shift. And so any hours that are worked outside that shift are at overtime. We have other units that they move their start time and end time to deal with meetings, to deal with operational needs. And so that flexibility pay, they were getting shift differential. We split it apart and said, no, you're going to get it. It's called flexibility pay. We had to fix some of the language in the contract because then we were having issues where the supervisory structure of the department was using the officers that are getting the flexibility pay to then have them do weekend work on something that really wasn't for flexibility pay. It was more of a whole community event. And so that's that language that was being cleaned up in that. Concerning the lunch breaks, so our patrol officers, they take a 30-minute lunch break as long as the call load allows for it. But it can be interrupted. It's part of their normal work schedule. So if it's interrupted, it's interrupted. There's no compensatory time that gets given or anything like that. That's how the lunch breaks work. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think there was just a scheduling concern from some of the feedback I got. They were worried, they should be compensated for it, absolutely, but just trying to identify if you had people, a glut of people leaving 30 minutes or an hour early.
Yeah, I'm not aware of
Okay.
of that exactly.
Okay. Maybe it's not an issue. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I haven't had a chance to fully read through all of this and digest it, so I'm glad that we have a week. Just a couple quick questions, though. Page 39 talks to all records, reports, statements, and information contained in professional standards being confidential. But given what we've seen in the last year or so, and honestly before that, I know that there's a community desire to see records and incidents of excessive force or officer-involved shootings. So would this clause stop that from happening, or as far as a publicly released record?
Are we referring to a change in the contract there, or is that existing language in the contract?
Number 1 on page 39, all records, reports, statements, and information contained in professional standards are confidential and may only be used by the employee in a grievance as described in Article 14.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor, that language is unchanged. It's been in the agreement. I'm having a ongoing conversation with the Citizen Review Board regarding that issue. We've done some survey work in a majority of the comparable cities, protect employee records, as we do for all of our employees. The work of the Citizen Review Board is an important one of oversight, and so this provision has not been utilized to keep information, confidential information away from the Citizen Review Board. So we continue to talk about their responsibilities, not just in terms of reviewing this, but then also representing in the public that they've taken a look at use of force cases. And that is not just in isolation, but also in terms of repeat cases, which I think has been the biggest concern expressed in the community. I believe in protecting the employees' rights to privacy for their personnel files, but I also think it is important that we do have some accountability to a citizen group, that goes up above and beyond just city staff in that regard. So that's where we are right now. I have a meeting later this week with the Police Review or Citizen Review Board to talk about the issue again. And FOP has been very cooperative in terms of the provision of information to the Citizen Review Board.
That is good to know. And then the other question, I guess maybe just seeing if there's a difference. So if a citizen was answering questions from law enforcement, is it policy that offensive language, coercion, or a promise of reward cannot be used as inducement for a citizen? Because it says that they can't do that to law enforcement. So is that the same? Are we treating the citizens the same as the officers?
That would be, those are good questions that would probably be beyond what the original intent of that contract language was. So, we could capture that, I believe, in how we govern our employees with regards to a policy about that. But that wouldn't necessarily be a contractual arrangement of what we do internally with our employees, but how we would treat our citizens, and that would be covered in a policy.
It would be covered in the police department's operating policies, and as well as in training guidelines.
Okay. When I say I hadn't fully read through, because some of those policies are cited, so I haven't went back to compare what this is saying versus that, but just had a few quick questions. So I appreciate the answers.
Further questions for staff? I have a couple. First, Juneteenth being a holiday, is that a paid holiday?
It would be a paid holiday, yes, Your Honor.
What would, and just outside the the contract here, could I get a fiscal note if we were able to extend Juneteenth as a paid holiday to all of our staff, what would that cost us? Because that's something that I think I looked into, feels like 10 years ago, but maybe last year, and I think that's really good precedence to have in here, and it might be something that we could extend to our other employees as well.
Mayor,
You probably have the number off the top of your head, don't you?
well, I think I remember what it cost for this unit, but we have treated this as an issue of negotiation with our unions, and then we're also looking at this for our non-union employees. There's an SEIU agreement coming right behind this, where we did have discussions about this, and then we're also going to bring to you on the 21st recommendations for our unrepresented or non-represented employees. That still leaves, though, Teamsters and firefighters, and it would be that the negotiation of the benefit is more appropriate in that arena in terms of negotiations instead of a unilateral across the board increase, especially since that was part of a negotiated package with what will be two unions, as well as it will come into consideration as we do our final package with the non-union. So it's probably, my recommendation is that we address that issue with fire and Teamsters next year as we do in negotiations, with the understanding that we've set some precedent, and I think what you're expressing is a preference that be a citywide benefit.
Of course, but done responsibly, so
yeah,
of course. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor brought up a good point. So on Juneteenth, because we always love having our officers join us, does that impact community events as far as having them as security or not?
Those who are not on duty will have the day off, and it will be a paid holiday. Right. Those who are on duty get premium pay for the holiday.
And the last question I have before and like the Vice Mayor, I plan on jumping into this more in detail by next week. I appreciate the extra week. But on slide 169, it says the elimination of the $100 fitness bonus provided to eligible members. Are our members so fit that they no longer need that, or what was it just seems like an odd point. What was the discussion there?
That is some old contract provisions there that probably hasn't, it's probably served its usefulness. And so I think with the officers' emphasis now on staying fit, it's no longer used in that positive way. And so we rolled it into their base pay. And so it was like we said earlier, when you look at as we compare our pay with other communities, it's hard to break those things out. And so we thought, let's just get actual credit for what we do pay for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Is there any more questions for staff on this item from the bench? See none. Thank you. We will open up to the public. Is there public input?
Mayor.
Welcome.
Council. Dave Inklar, President of the Fraternal Order of Police, 477 North Seneca. I just want to thank Chief Gordon Ramsey, members of the Wichita Police Department command staff, and members of the City Council, or City of Wichita contract negotiation team. We work together in partnership on a mutual agreement which we brought forth to you. During this process, we met with members of the Racial Profiling Advisory Board, members of the NAACP, and other community members to get ideas and input on the contract. Our members overwhelmingly voted in favor of the contract to move forward to council. We request that the city council members approve this contract, and we thank everybody for the city for their hard work on this. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Inklar, one quick question. I know the Racial Profiling Board as well as the NAACP had some items that they wanted addressed. Were any of those included and voted on by the union?
We did have, I know for sure one where we had some contract language where you could remove personnel files that weren't permanent. We changed that to they are permanent.
Okay.
And we had other stuff, but the main concerns that they had, a lot of them dealt with police department policy. So we are working on looking at some of that stuff too.
Okay. Do you have a timeline of Because I keep getting asked if
Oh,
there's
no,
going to be a response.
I want it to be sooner than later.
Okay,
So I will email the chief and see if we can't push that farther.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, public speaker. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you to our new council members who have showed up today as well. I'm here to talk to you today about the FOP contract. I understand that this is the first reading of the contract and that you'll have a week to review it before final approval next week. But I'm here to discuss some issues that have been ongoing for years, and I'd ask you all to look at this very seriously before the approval of the contract. So I have a lot of experience helping families that have been negatively impacted by the Wichita Police Department. Over the years, I've built many relationships with people in this city, working relationships, and what's been clear to me is that there are policies, practices, and ongoing issues with how police discipline is dealt with in Wichita. Many times when the chief has made a decision to discipline an officer, that decision is overturned by the city manager, Human Resources, and the FOP. This is unacceptable. I'm an advocate for strong public safety. I sit on many county and city boards on this topic, and I can tell you that protecting bad cops isn't good for anyone, especially all the good cops that we have here in Wichita today. I would ask that before you pass this contract, you also work on changing these policies so that when the chief tries to enforce consequences for bad behavior, sexual harassment, shooting someone, the city manager isn't overruled by FOP, the city manager, or HR. We must do better. Secondly, I ask you to listen to the Citizens Review Board. Even though that board is entirely appointed by the city manager, they have made an important request to make the personnel files to officers be available to the public. The city manager has said that this will create a separate class of city employees, and I strongly disagree. Police are already a different class of employee because they are commissioned with a firearm. With great power comes great responsibility, and that requires extra transparency. There's an ongoing practice of bad cops being disciplined, and they are moved from department to department or even put back to work with the WPD. And unless we have watchdogs like myself, the general public would never know. Justin Rapp and other officers have murdered residents and continue to live off the taxpayer dime to this day. They continue to rule with their AR-15. They're able to be out here harassing our innocent people in our community. And this isn't only about the use of force. Complaints of sexual harassment are also being covered up by the FOP, the manager, and HR. This is not okay. The community doesn't agree. We elected a new council because we're sick of business as usual. Please respect these issues that affect our entire community. Everyone should feel safe in Wichita. No one should have to fear the bad police. We can and must do better. Under this new contract, it looks like the CRB would be able to view records in private under a gag order with no authority to act on any knowledge. Again, more secrecy. More hiding the bad police. We want to know who they are. You know, when there's a victim, we wake up to their names in the paper. It took us a long time to figure out who shot Andrew Finch because of the secrecy in this city. They have to be held to a higher standard. We have to know who is out here abusing our people. And we have the CRB. I think every one of you should have an appointment to the CRB. But when we have an event where someone is killed by a police officer, there has to be, if we brought that to the CRB, if everybody had an appointment to the CRB and they could look and they vote on what happens to that officer, we can't leave all the power to the Fraternal Order of Police to continue to protect our bad officers and cover up what they've done, allow them to be moved around. That's all I have to say today. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Miss, if you don't mind, you stating your name and address for the record.
Sorry, my name is Ann Jones, and I live at 600 North Crest Line. On the northwest end of Wichita.
Thank you. Further input from the public? All right, seeing none, so we will bring the discussion back to the bench. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just one bit of clarification. We're actually voting on this next week, not 2 weeks. So, next Tuesday.
I'll be back to speak in 2 weeks. I'll see you next week, too.
Further discussion from the bench? All right, if there's no further discussion, we see staff has risen to the podium. Does staff have more to add?
No, I do not. Just answering questions.
All right, well, with that, I'll make the motion to take staff's recommended action, which says the, quote, "The Racial Profile Advisory Board of Wichita has requested that the public be provided a full week to review the recommended provisions of the Memorandum of Agreement. Therefore, it is recommended by the City Council receive the proposed 2022-2024 Memorandum of Agreement between the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 5 and the City of Wichita, and schedule a final consideration of the MOA for December 14th, 2021. That is the motion. It has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will go ahead and open up the roll so members can cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Child Care Aware of Kansas Sustainability Grant Round 2.
Round 2.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning, sir. Welcome back.
Here to speak to you guys in reference to Child Care Aware of Kansas Sustainability Grant Round 2. Background on this is Child Care Aware Kansas Sustainability Grants provide funding for centers from the Centers for Disease Control for analysis. Over the last 2 years, due to COVID-19, recreation center equipment purchases, minor renovations have been limited. Staff will have access to buy necessary program equipment to expand and enhance programming needs, fix poor condition equipment, facility needs, as well as help aid in staff costs and professional development, which is required by Kansas Department of Health, KDHE. So analysis of that, each of the centers listed below have receiving funding from this grant that can be used towards those expenses. So you'll see that at the top list here, each of those locations were granted $30,000, which is Linwood Recreation Center, Edgemoor Recreation Center, as well as Atwater Neighborhood Resource Center. The centers below were awarded $60,000 each for some of those same expenses. Carnegie Brewer, Wooded Recreation Center, Orchard Recreation Center, Colvin, as well as Evergreen Recreation Center. The total grant awarded for all of these locations is $390,000. So for consideration for this, the sustainability grant provide the above-mentioned recreation centers for equipment, minor renovations, variety of supplies, staffing costs, and professional development costs, and there's no matching funds required from the city. So the legal considerations, the department has reviewed and approved the contract of Child Aware Kansas Sustainability Grant as to form. And it is recommended that the City Council accept the grant for Child Care Aware Kansas Sustainability Grant and authorize the necessary signatures. And I'll stand for any questions that you guys may have.
Questions for staff? See none, thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? If there is no discussion on this item, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to accept the grant for Child Care Aware Kansas Sustainability Grant and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Repair or removal of dangerous and unsafe structure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. I'm Kaylin Nethercott with Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. We're here today to talk about a property that was first considered by the Board of Code Standards and Appeals on the July 12th meeting. This property's been given a couple of different deferrals at the property owner's request. It is located in District 6. Just a quick review of the case history on this. The property's had an open housing case for a year and 9 months. It was damaged by fire in February 2019. A UCC has been issued and the property has been the subject of environmental court and the taxes are current. Mr. Lobmeyer, the owner, is here with me. We've met, so he accompanied me up today to speak with you. And so I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about his intent for the property.
All right, sir.
Yeah, name's Don Lobmeyer, property owner. Just to give some background on that, I was gone on deployment when it was set on fire. I was gone a month before I got to come back. So I was at the Warrior Transition Unit at Fort Riley for a month before I got to come home to even check to see out what happened with the fire and stuff. And I was been there. I was living there since 2003. So raised my kids and my wife. Was there for that time and as far as all that. But I got to come home the first weekend to check it out and everything else, and then found out that the daughter's boyfriend that we had living in the back apartment was on the property when the fire was started and stuff, or shortly was called afterwards and stuff, but they never could prove that he had started or anything else as far as that. They let me come off a Warrior Transition Unit instead of staying up there to try to work on the property and stuff, instead of taking care of my medical issues that I had and mental issues that I was dealing with. So then they taken it back down here in Wichita, and then in June they did the MRI on my shoulder and had realized I had torn the rotator cuff, and then they did the surgery in September, realized I had torn the rotator cuff, labrum, and bicep, and had bone spurs in it. And then also during that time I was finally diagnosed with ADHD in that same time that I was back here. So it was with the trying to focus and do the stuff I was working on, the distractions and everything else made it more difficult than the physical activities. They put me back in active duty orders for 6 months, and we just finally get to where they're finally going to be medically retire me after 24 years with the military. I got in originally in 87 with the Guards, was able to serve with Mayor Brewer with the unit here in Wichita and everything else for the 6 years. Got out, got back in 2005. Immediately that first year after I got married with my wife, went to deploy to Iraq in 05-06. Came back 2010-11, deployed again over to Africa, and then deployed again 2018-19. So a lot of the dates that you see that things were happening was while I was gone, or right before that time too. 2017 was part trying to deal with a lot of things, trying to go counseling, trying to figure out what was wrong mentally with a lot of things. And because of just not able to get the things done, I did get sentenced to jail for 30 days during some of this stuff. I did go to work release for a couple of weeks, appealed this decision on it, but then went back, and then of course they put me back in for 5 days before I went to on this last deployment. Making it harder to prepare to get ready for it and stuff. So there's just a lot of stuff that we're finally getting through. A lot of the things through with the military. Finally, getting taken care of some of the stuff now, medicated and everything else. And that's been a challenge the last 3 years. Is getting things that I've had issues, because going back in at 36 and being thrown in with the infantry guys going to Iraq. Don't mind the stuff, but it just takes the wear and tear on your body. And so they're finally, realizing that it's what the damage is done. And I just keep on going. I can't stop. And so So yeah, it's taking some time now. Yeah, I can uncover the windows, the boards that's on the windows. There's windows up on there. There's a door at the front door. You know, there's things underneath the boards that, you know, that I haven't taken down off of there. When I first came back there, like I said, we was trying to get a $10,000 Army Emergency Relief Fund through the military. So I had to wait for the fire report, get the estimates to do stuff on it. And it was, they said I had to have at least 30 days of active duty time, you know, and I said, well, I've been deployed for over a year, so I was still on active duty at the time. So by the time I got up to the McConnell to take that up there, they said, well, you don't have 30 days left on your active duty orders. So I wasn't able to get the $10,000 Army Emergency Relief Fund. Then there's another company that was talking about where they can replace the roofs for vets. And so I talked to them, but then I was still on active duty time at the time. And so I was like, you know, he's damned if you do, damned if you don't almost and stuff. So it's been a lot of resources and just been not able to get, you know, with it. And some of the things, he said I know there's some other stuff that was on the reports that was on the information that's not accurate on there either and stuff. But, you know, it's just been a struggle and trying to keep going and work on it. I'm living in the carriage house behind that house right now, trying to maintain, do what I can back there and stuff as far as that. So it just kind of gives more information as far as, you know, what I'm going through. But like I say, hopefully, and like I say, I got like 3 of these packets and stuff I'm trying to deal with at the same time. So it's been a challenge to keep going, so.
Definitely sounds that we do have a, go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Lodemeyer, the last time we spoke, you had mentioned you might have a potential buyer for the property. Was there progress on that?
Part of the issue, you know, like I say, I'm a friend of mine that we deployed with, you know, him and his girlfriend who's pregnant, they've been homeless for the last couple of years. And so that was the main intention of that property there at the time, was to use, you know, we'd bought another property in 2008, which on the records, it shows that it was in condemnation at that time. We didn't own the property at the time that it was being condemned. We bought it after, you know, we went there at the tax auction. And so I came up here and to talk to, you know, we uncovered the windows, the boards had got it all to where it's not, it was, you know, they took it off the condemnation list at that time and stuff. So that was, we was working on that to move into that property, and then those apartments were going to be set up for the homeless vets and stuff. And so that was one of those things that I've been working with the young couple for the last 3 months, and he's been helping me out with some stuff to where he's learning how to fish instead of just giving them the fish. And so when I started looking in other ways of getting finances for it, I couldn't get an equity loan on my property because I didn't have windows in it, because I'd have it insured. So I've been cutting glass, glazing the windows, rebuilding the frames and putting them in there temporarily, so it costs them less to get it back up to where it's at the time and stuff. And so get that, and then I can go ahead and possibly get the equity loan to finish it up. We've got some other stuff we're working on, getting the roof done and everything else, but yeah, I know the firefighters were doing their job, breaking out all the windows and saving a lot of stuff that was in there that, you know, it's important. You know, of course, my wife lost a lot of her photo albums and scrapbooks and everything else, which is irreplaceable, and she's only been over there. She's only been over there once since the fire. So, yeah, so it's been, you know, been a challenge trying to figure out how to keep going with all that and stuff. So.
One more question for you, and this is just a practicality, a follow-up from what we had discussed before. I know that at one point in time you were soliciting structural engineers' reports, and have you been able to procure that yet?
I was given reports from somebody in the central inspections. I called them and they weren't doing anything as far as residential. All the lists. They said, well, no, we're only doing commercial stuff. And like I said, it's just been frustrating trying to find. And it's only on the north side where the windows on on that one side. The rest of the house is just basically smoke damage. There wasn't anything, even one of the inspectors, I allowed them to come in and look, and there's no damage to any of the roof, the floors, any of that, just that one, part of the side of the building on the north side that has the boards that are damaged and stuff as far as that. So it's not, it looked worse when I first got there until I cleaned everything up. And there's still work to be done, but it's just taking time to do it, when I can't, as far as working on it and stuff. So there's no power in the house. There's no gas in the house. You can't, so you're working with elements between in and out and stuff as far as that time, during that time, so.
Councilmember Clayco.
Thank you. Sir, so you talked a little bit about your plans. Do you have any sense of how long it would take you?
Well, financially, it's just trying to get stuff, I'm trying not to get myself in it, because we're, technically I was supposed to go back to my job after I came back. And because of the medical issues and then having to do the surgery and stuff, and I haven't been able to go back to my civilian job. And they've kept me on as employed, so I haven't been able to pull unemployment or nothing like that during that time. So where right now, I'm getting some of my disability from the VA, which, is less than $2,000. But where I'm in the military, I was making over $6,000 a month and stuff. And so, where if I would have stayed and was able to take care of and focus on everything there at Fort Riley, I could have been taking care of a lot more stuff, got it done quicker than trying to do it all down here, plus everything else that was going on down here at the same time. So I'm finally reaching out, finally asking, getting help from some people that we're working on and to get it, where I just, was trying to do it all on my own and trying to do that because of all the stuff, it's my fault because I didn't have insurance on the house. It was all paid for. So it's like, okay, it's really difficult to just ask for help in that sense and stuff. So that's the reason why it's just trying to do it all on my own and what I can. And there was things that were taken even after the fire. Even the daughter's boyfriend, he had pawned stuff off of mine, but I couldn't even file police reports because he had access to my property. So I had to go through small claims court. Like, what's the whole purpose of that and stuff? So I just, there's just a lot of stuff. Plus, my son got on the drugs, and was 17-year-old, and then he tried to commit suicide a couple of times, and I've had to take him to the hospital.
What year was the fire?
2019.
2019.
Like I say, there's things that happen, and that's, I don't get the things done as quick as possible sometimes, but I'm trying to do what I can and stuff. So,
Caitlin, we're not talking about taking the entire house down. We are talking about taking the entire house down. I thought it said the front part.
No, there's the carriage house behind it.
Oh, the front house.
Yeah, there are two separate structures on the property. The front property, the front structure is the one that was fire damaged.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that doesn't.
I understand.
It's the front structure.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for your service.
Thank you. Yeah, I know John Todd called me a couple months ago about stuff, and then he called somebody else, and of course he called the Howard Hutchinson, which I've known Howard for a couple of, for 20-some years when he stopped in the convenience store where I worked at and stuff. So he showed up at, 10 o'clock that night, just not knowing even it was me, even the talk that he was talking about and stuff. So it's not, there's people out there just trying to figure out what we can go on and everything else and stuff. And it's just been a challenge because every time we get resources saying we can do this, it's not, it's just, it just seems like, either you're suicidal, homeless, alcoholic, drug addict, or something so far down before anybody will help even that. Even with my son, trying to get him in a treatment center, they weren't even taking TRICARE insurance. We had to find a grant that was through the COVID stuff to even get him up to Kansas City for a month of treatment and everything else during that time. So it's just, like I say, it's just crazy trying to find the resources to do certain things. And either, unless you lie the stuff on the applications, which I don't feel that's my moral, my morals won't let me do that, lie on the applications to say, yeah, I'll get this if I lie about it, so.
Thank you. Councilmember Clayco.
So I'm trying to determine if we gave you more time, if you think that would help. but I don't think we can give you indefinite time, because it's a dangerous structure right now, right?
Well, it's, like I say, if you look at the report where, I don't know which page it was on.
Yeah, with the
stuff.
picture.
It shows that there's smoke damage basically in the three of the apartments. The other apartment was never touched. So,
Councilmember Claycomb, we would very much like to see a structural engineer's report. Typically, we would have that a little earlier in the process on one like this. But we do have some concerns about that structural viability overall. If it would be council's pleasure to allow time for that to happen, and perhaps come back and review this situation in a few months, that would be okay.
How long do you think that would take?
There are a limited number of contractors who do residential structural evaluations, so I wouldn't think that 60 to 90 days would be inappropriate on that, given that we're in the holiday season.
Okay.
And, sorry, can you pass along some of the information to this gentleman about the structural engineers who do work on residential property? It sounds like you've tried to do everything right when it comes to getting
they did give me the
those folks.
information, and I called them, and one was just never got, it was like, you couldn't get a hold of them. And the other ones I called, and they said, and I was explaining to them, they said, yeah, we're not doing any residential property structural engineer reports and stuff. So, okay, so then I'm trying to figure out anything else, going through the phone book, all the other ones, and it's like, non-existent, it seemed like, so, and I don't understand it because people say that they're out there, but.
Right, and and frankly, I wouldn't know, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't know who to call. But I know our team works with folks who perhaps we could pass along some of the numbers, the folks who work in these type of situations, and maybe you'll have better luck, hopefully getting a structure report from one of those folks instead of just, I guess, pulling numbers off the internet. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council member, if it's all right, given a unique set of circumstances and his service to this country, if the council is willing, I'd be willing to find funds for the structural repair so we know what we're dealing with. And I know that's a break from our normal process, but I think that would allow us to determine the condition of the house and whether or not we are able to move forward. And then if you give us 90 days, we'll arrange for the structural and then get the report back to the property owner as well as to the mayor and council.
I think that would be great, actually, and perhaps, and this is normally stuff that I don't say from the bench, but perhaps there's an opportunity when we look at this situation and other situations like that for us to put out maybe some more information for folks who are going through the process on where they can find some of those resources that they would need in order to be better prepared for a day like today. So maybe we could talk offline about having a phone list, having resources, so that folks can do that. But if we could, if it is the will of the body to extend this another 90 days, then yes, if we could work with this gentleman, that would be, I think, beneficial to all. So further discussion, Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. I just want to be clear what I heard the manager say. I think I heard you say finding funds for the structural repair. I think you meant structural report.
Apologize, I meant
Thank
the
you.
structural inspection. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good, because I think that'd be easier to pay for.
Yeah.
We can cover that.
Right. I mean, my thought is if we know the condition of the house, then it may be easier for us to identify potential resources. If the house is severely damaged, that's going to be impossible. But if it is just some repairs necessary to keep the house up, then we'll know and we can look at what kind of assistance would be available for, especially a veteran. So.
Yeah, that's what I took from the comments, and hopefully, again, there's a learning opportunity where we could find those resources, possibly find other resources for folks.
I know it's like $385 or so, less than $500 for those reports. Is just trying to find somebody to do it. That's been the challenge. It's like, to have the funds that I can get the report, but getting a hold of the person that can do it and stuff. And yeah, that's been the challenge. There's, we talked about that. Like when there's not having resources to, from before, that's what some of us, it's like it'd be neat to have a list of stuff to call and talk to and find out about that stuff beforehand, so.
All right. And this is important information to have, I think, for all parties. So let's, is there any more discussion on this? We'll open up for, no, we don't do public input on these ones, do we? So not that anyone's here. Besides, this should have missed the public input. So we can bring discussion back to the bench, and I will defer the floor to Councilmember Claycomb for a motion as this resides in District 6.
Thank you, and I may need some help with this, but I'll take a shot at it. I'd like to move that City Council defer this item for 90 days to allow time for structural engineers report, and then bring that back to City Council. Does that work?
Second.
Motion has been made and then seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. And thank you, staff,
for your
for
time.
working on this with this gentleman. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
CON 2021-46, city conditional use to allow an accessory apartment on property zoned SF5 single-family residential, generally located northeast of South Broadway Avenue and East Mount Vernon Road, 1747 South Santa Fe Avenue.
Welcome, Scott.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present this item. All right, just want to make sure I got this lined up right. So this item is being presented today because the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission recommendations differ. And primarily why they differ is because neither the applicant nor agent showed up at the DAB meeting, and so the DAB voted to recommend denial. Property owner has applied for a zone change from SF5 to TF3 to family zoning in order to allow the use of the property, including an existing accessory apartment, which is located on the site at the west end of the property. The property is located in the South Central neighborhood at 1747 South Santa Fe. The property is developed with a single-family house, a detached garage, and a detached accessory apartment. All of the structures were built prior to 1950. Both the house and accessory apartment have been boarded up, and it appears they've not been occupied for some time. In terms of the context, the surrounding properties to the east, south, and west are zoned SF5 single-family and developed with single-family homes. Property adjacent to the north is zoned TF3, two-family, and developed with a single-family house. In terms of review, on November 3rd, the District Advisory Board considered the application and voted 4-1 to recommend denial. Again, the basis of this denial was failure of the applicant or their agent to appear at the DAB meeting. On November 4th of this year, the public hearing for this item was held at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission voted unanimously, 12-0, to approve the requested conditional use with conditions that address the following: that ownership must remain the same for the accessory apartment as for the house, the property must be developed in conformance with the approved site plan, that the accessory apartment must be similar in appearance to the main house in the neighborhood, and that the accessory apartment must use the same utilities. Additional conditions are identified in the staff report, but those are the main highlights. No protest petitions have been received for the requested zone change. In terms of actions, it is recommended the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested conditional use for an accessory apartment, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the City Clerk to publish the resolution. This requires a simple majority, 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include: you may override the MAPC recommendation and deny the conditional use. This would require 5 of 7 votes. You can approve with modifications to the MAPC recommendation. Again, this would require 5 of 7 votes. And you can return the case to the MAPC for additional consideration. That would require a simple majority of 4 of 7 votes. With that, I'll go through some of the images. So here's the graphic showing the zoning in the area. You can see that it's quite diverse. Here's the future growth concept map showing residential is recommended in the area. Here's the site plan that was submitted as part of the application. You can see it identifies all 3 structures. Here's the protest map. There were no protests received on this case. Here's some images, photos from the site. So this is the home. See the accessory apartment in the back there. This is looking across the street. It's looking to the south, southwest. There's the aerial photo. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Can you go back to the slide that shows the apartment that's in question?
Yes, sir. Here you go.
So is it reasonable to believe that if this was to, because the apartment has boarded up windows, and is it reasonable to believe that if this request was to go forward and this became a legitimate apartment, that they would invest into that unit so it wouldn't be a boarded up structure again? Is that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That's my understanding about the basis for the request, is to make sure that they're in compliance with the zoning and therefore they can pull the building permits necessary.
Okay. This resides in District 3, and this is one of those situations where the DAB and the MAPC are in disagreement. So Chair, I recognize Councilmember Sorello to give us more information.
Thank you, Mayor. There were a number of unique circumstances, very unique circumstances that were discussed at the DAB meeting, and as Scott suggested, the basis of the DAB's denial was because the developer or the applicant or their agent didn't show up. And the District 3 Advisory Board has made it known a number of times over the past several years that if you're going to make an application to go through the zone change process, they want to hear from the applicant. They want the applicant and or at least an applicant's agent to be an active part of the role and take part in the process. So that was the basis of the DAB 3's recommendation for denial. What I'm struggling with here is that obviously the structure is already up, and the structure was built in 1940. It's been there since 1940. So I guess my question to Scott then would be, if we do deny this, would they be forced to tear down the structure then? I mean, what would happen? Certainly, I don't think that's going to happen, but,
Sure.
but
No,
what happens if this is denied?
Great question. Well, it certainly could not be used in the way that it was developed and intended. So what would occur is that it could be used only for single-family housing. You would not be able to have a secondary residential unit back there. It doesn't mean that you couldn't use it for kids as like a bedroom or something like that, but it would not be allowed to be used for a separate dwelling unit, which means that it's got certain accommodations, including a place to sleep, a place to prepare food, certain things like that. I'm familiar with a friend in College Hill who had a unit in their back above their garage, and they were not able to finish it out to be a dwelling unit. And so this would be in a similar situation. Doesn't mean they couldn't use it, but it would not be able to be used as a separate living unit.
Did the applicant show up to the MAPC board and present there?
That is a good question. I believe this one went on consent. So they were never called forward to comment.
So they didn't believe that they had to be for the MAPC board because it was on consent. Has anybody talked to them did they just assume the DAB, this would be on consent as well? Is this a developer who knows that they should have showed up to DAB? I'm just curious to know about the contact with the property owner and how that's been.
Well, our staff, when they take in a case, when they get assigned a case, they reach out and touch base with the applicant, make sure that they understand the process, make sure that they have all their contact information to contact them if they've got any questions. So it's my understanding that they had good contact, and I'm not sure what the reason was for why the applicant was not there at the DAB meeting.
Did someone reach out, and this might be a question for Councilmember Sorello, did someone directly reach out to the applicant? And did they, once they got in contact, did they, I guess, provide a reason why they wouldn't show up for DAB? I just want to figure out if they knew for sure they had to, or what was going on. Where's the miscommunication? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, and I have a question for Councilmember Sorello, if that's okay. So is the only reason, and I'm trying to figure this out in my head, right? So is the only reason that the DAB denied it because the applicant didn't show up? Because I'm trying to think through this. Like, the applicant wouldn't know that they were going to get automatically denied just for not showing up. I mean, maybe they had an emergency, maybe, I don't know. So I'm just trying to figure it out in my head of if there were other things that the DAB disagreed with other than just the lack of the applicant.
There was more discussion other than just that. In fact, there was there was a robust discussion about this property. We had to take a couple of votes, in fact, to come to a final decision that ended up being the recommendation for denial. Also, Scott, I have a question as well. You said, just to clarify, your staff did reach out to the property owner and let them know of the process?
Yes.
And let them know of the DAB meeting and let them know that their case would be discussed at DAB? Let them know that the DAB would make a recommendation, those types of things?
Yes, we make sure that they're informed about the process and they've got it in writing about when events will take place. Doesn't mean that we always confirm with them that they're going to be there ahead of time, but we do provide them with the information so they know what the schedule is.
Further discussion, I will let Councilman Bluebog have the floor now so I can gather my thoughts. Go ahead. Thank you for bailing me out.
I just wanted to kind of put in my 2 cents here. I had an issue last night that came in front of my DAB, and the owner didn't know that he needed to be there, and I texted him, and I'm like, you probably need to be there because there's going to be questions from the public. So I know you guys do your best to let everybody know, but a lot of times people are so confused and they really don't know what's going on with the process. So, it sounds like there was quite a bit going on there, but yeah, I would sure hate to see someone denied just because they didn't know that they needed to be there.
My thoughts along those lines where the process for folks who aren't as engaged in city government, I think, can be confusing. If this person got through the MAPC with, frankly, on consent agenda, where very little resistance, they might have just assumed that's that. So that's why I'm trying to get a little more context, because it does feel like just not showing up to one of the two meetings, especially in the age of COVID, in the age where we are now. I mean, I agree with Councilmember Tuttle. It could have, for all we know, it could have been a legitimate reason. It means that this property will continue to be boarded up and unutilized. I have concerns with that. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just chime in as well. I didn't watch the discussion. I just read the notes, so I don't know what all was discussed. But I've also seen this at DAB 1. I think it's also known DAB 1 wants to talk to folks. DAB made a decision one time and council upheld it, and a developer reached out upset, but said they knew that the meeting was happening. They just chose not to show up, and there were some questions that the DAB had. And maybe had he been able to answer the way he said to me, that might have been approved. So I definitely understand that. We also recently had a case that may end up being a headache for you, where there was a property owner that listed they were the property owner and they're not. And DAB, somebody showed up to DAB and called us out on that. And I think staff found out later they were right. So I think it's important to show up when you know there's a meeting for something that you've invested money in to get rezoned, that you show up to each of those, or at least let someone know. So I definitely understand that.
I'm ready to make a motion if you so please, Mr. Chairman.
I'm still lacking in the necessary information that I need. So MAPC unanimously approves this based on the file and the application, based on, it sounds like it's approved based on the merits. The DAB board, it sounds like, is seeking to overturn this or disagrees with it not based on the merits of the case, it based more on, well, the person didn't show up. And we expected them to show up. But I haven't heard much about the communication on, was there an emergency? Did the person know? I'm still lacking, I guess, that context. So as I give the floor to Councilmember Cirillo, I'm hoping to get a bit more context on this. So Councilmember Cirillo.
And again, those same things were discussed at the DAB meeting, those exact same issues that you brought up. And that's why the two members who voted against the recommendation for denial did so, because they had those exact same questions of, hey, I think we need to give the property owner the benefit of the doubt. We don't know what their reasons were. We don't know if they've had an emergency on this evening. We just don't know. Ultimately, after discussing this for probably close to an hour, we had to make a decision, and that was the decision that the DAB ultimately came to, was to recommend denial. I will say again that, like I said, this structure has been there since 1940. I suppose I'm prepared to make a motion to accept MAPC's recommendations because the structure is already there. The structure has been there since 1940. The property owner, and I guess this is another question just to clarify with Scott, the property owner has submitted or has made it known that they plan, as soon as they get this request approved, that they plan to begin renovations on the property. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, that they intend to invest in the property and bring it all up to habitable condition and utilize it.
So based on that, I would move that the council accept the MAPC recommendation to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded as to approve the MAPC's recommendation. So with that, clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. I've received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
ZON 2021-44, city zone change from SF5 single-family residential to TF3 two-family residential, generally located within 1/4 mile east of Zoo Boulevard and 2 blocks south of West 9th Street North.
Hello again. This item is being presented today because, again, the District Advisory Board and the Planning Commission recommendations differ. In this case, they differ because the DAB recommended that design standards requirements be applied to the property in the way that it's designed and constructed, and the MAPC did not. The property owner has applied for a zone change from SF5 to TF3 in order to allow for the construction of a duplex on the site. About the property is located generally southwest of the intersection, southeast of the intersection of Zoo Boulevard and 9th Street. The property is currently undeveloped. In terms of context, the surrounding properties to the north and west are zoned SF5 single family and developed with single family homes. The property to the east is zoned SF5 single family is undeveloped. Properties to the south are zoned B multifamily and developed with multifamily units. In terms of review, on October 20th, the DAB voted unanimously, 8-0, to approve the application subject to requiring conformance to design standards, which are identified in the staff report and are based on the Places for People plan, by way of a protective overlay that would be placed on the property. No members of the public spoke in opposition at the DAB meeting. On October 21st, the public hearing was held at the Planning Commission meeting. Planning Commission reviewed the application and recommended approval 12-0, so unanimously, without requiring, but instead recommending, that the developer use design guidelines. No members of the public spoke in opposition at the MAPC meeting. No protest petitions have been received for the requested zone change. In terms of actions, it is recommended that the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested zone change, place the ordinance on the first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the ordinance after approval on the second reading. This would require a simple majority of 4 of 7 votes. Alternatives include that you can override the MAPC recommendation, provide alternative findings, and deny the zone change. Change would require 5 of 7 votes. You can approve with modifications to the MAPC recommendation. This would require 5 of 7 votes. Or you can return the application to the MAPC for reconsideration, which would require a simple majority of 4 of 7. I'll take you through some of the images here. So here's the zoning map. You can see the majority SF5 single family with multifamily to the south. Here's the map of the future growth area concept map showing recommending residential. Here's the protest map showing 0 protests were received for the case. Here's a photo of the property. This is property adjacent or nearby to the west. This is looking towards the north and east. This is the multifamily property to the south. Here's the aerial image. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
So just to sum up the difference between the DAB and the MAPC, during the case, the developer agrees or there's a recommendation of following particular building standards, and then the DAB doesn't want that to be a recommendation. It wants it to be a hard requirement. Is that kind of sums up?
It's close. Just a small tweak on that, and that is that the staff recommendation in this case was to recommend that the developer use the design guidelines, not require. So the MAPC, I believe they took this one on consent. There was no discussion about it. They just passed it with the staff recommendation. The DAB, when they considered it, said that the design was important and should not be just a recommendation, but rather that they should be required to comply with those design standards. And so that is the difference, recommendation or require.
Requirement. Okay. Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you. I guess I should check to make sure there are no other questions before I make a motion. Nope, okay. All right. I move that City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested zone change with modifications to subject the request to a protective overlay requiring adherence to duplex design guidelines, place the ordinance on first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the ordinance after approval on second reading.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. This is to go with the DAB's recommendation. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Council member appointments and comments.
All right, rolling into appointments. Are there any appointments? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, sir. Due to a resignation, I need to make a new appointment to the Diversity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights Advisory Board. I'm nominating or recommending Angela Breer to be the replacement position for District 5.
Okay, is there another appointment? Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to again make the appointment of Clark Owens to the Ethics Advisory Board in place of Laura Rainwater.
Are there any more appointments at this time? See none. With that, I'll make a motion to accept the appointments.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Appointments are made. We are now back on announcements and general discussion. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just want to acknowledge this last week we lost former District 1 council member and State Senator Rip Gooch. He was a great community leader, accomplished quite a bit in his lifetime, and lived a full 98 years. And I appreciate his contributions to this community, and him always reminding me that he sat in his seat before me, before talking about issues. But just wanted to acknowledge that publicly, and our prayers are with the Gooch family.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, and I would like to follow that sentiment. I had the privilege of serving with Senator Gooch on the Kansas Aviation Museum for several years, and I loved his stories and his fascinating history. It was a privilege to serve with him. I would also like to acknowledge the loss of another statesman, war hero, lawmaker, and Senator Bob Dole. Tremendous loss for our community, our nation, and thoughts and prayers go to his family.
And I want to just add to the discussion, particularly on Senator Gooch, and I'm reading here from his grandson, Kerry Gooch, that the details for Rip's memorial service is Saturday, December 18th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Kansas Aviation Museum here in Wichita, and everyone is welcome to attend. So please keep that in mind if you would like to go to the public memorial service to show your respect to Senator Gooch. That is, again, December 18th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Kansas Aviation Museum. Any further announcements? If not, we got a couple things. First, I'd like to, pursuant to City Ordinance 2.04.010, I'd like to officially call a special session to occur at 6 p.m. on Monday, January 10th, to swear in the newly elected city council members. In addition, I have a blue sheet. So that I will right now make a motion, move that the city council recess into executive session for 30 minutes to receive information on an offer of settlement in a civil case pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for legal consultation with the Attorney General, which would be deemed, city attorney, excuse me. Freudian slip, huh? We'll try that again. For legal consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privilege in the attorney-client relationship, pending litigation, legal advice, claim settlement. The executive session is required to protect attorney-client privilege and the public interest. And I should note that when I said Freudian slip, I don't believe our lawyer is actually running for Attorney General, so I just want to clear that up. Let's start this right at 1 o'clock, and then for 30 minutes, we'll meet back in here at 1:30 to report out. So with that, that is the motion that the executive session will begin at 1 o'clock, giving folks a chance to take a quick break. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. And with that, we will be in executive session at 1 o'clock. That motion does pass, and we will meet back in the chamber at 1:30. Thank you.